Today, we're talking about my favorite book.
I would say it just has the best characters I've ever read in a book.
That was the moment of like going, holy that was wild. The ultimate indecisive, dense coward.
That's the character you're most like. I was trying to find it.
Ah, there you go.
We
You
came
found
around.
him. Yeehaw!
Skibbity damn!
Woo!
Did I say skibbity?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeehaw!
Oh, God, you ruined it. We're talking about Lonesome Dove today, people. Welcome back to Ramble. That hat does not work with headphones on. My name is Richard.
My name is Austin.
Today, oh, fuck, just throwing shit at me.
Where'd you put my book?
I don't know.
Where's my copy?
I don't know. You put it somewhere.
Okay, I'll just use your copy.
Today, we're talking about my favorite book I've ever read. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry.
Wow.
This has been, I've pushed this on Austin. Like, you know all that Sun Eater stuff too?
Pause that.
Pause that. We gotta go Lonesome Dove.
Yep.
Lonesome Dove is essential reading now. He, you know, you indulged me. I appreciate that.
It's your favorite book. I have to.
It's my favorite book.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. One day you're gonna come across something that tops even Red Rising.
I already have. What do you mean? It's not my favorite ever.
But we already read it together. Yes, I know.
Hold on. Spoiler free, by the way, for
Yes.
the first 15 minutes, probably.
Probably. This will be a longer spoiler
Convincing
free.
people to read this book. It's your
Yes.
favorite book of all time. We'll explain why. Spoiler free.
Before I get into anything, I want this to be the most important message that you get out of this. Let's say you do decide to read it. Do not read the preface. Do not read the preface.
No preface?
No preface.
No preface.
No preface.
Okay.
Big spoilers for the whole book.
There are
The
big
basic,
spoilers.
the big ending of the book. It is spoiled in the preface. Don't read it. Don't read it. Skip it. Read it at the end. I can't stress that enough. Good. With the PSA out of the way, we can actually talk about what this book is about.
With the PSA, I'm going to give a couple bits of information while you can get my book that's right next to you over there, the other copy. That one, right? Yeah, right there, right?
Okay.
So, to give some info, this won the 1986 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. So typically, thanks, Rich, typically on this channel, you see us reviewing fantasy, sci-fi. You see us reviewing books. Today, we're reviewing literature.
Literature.
Literally literature. Today, we like to keep it fun, but there's a lot to dive into this book.
It's a chunk.
It's almost 400,000 words. It's a long read. Don't let that discourage you from reading it. This was adapted into a miniseries in 1989, well acclaimed at the Emmys as well. Larry McMurtry actually wrote a script to this book years and years and years and years before making this into a book. He was trying to make it a show, and it just didn't go through as a show, so he decided to take that script, write it into a book, did that, then the book became a show anyway, so he had that script ready to go anyways. This is the first book that he published in this series. So Lonesome Dove came out in 1985, but there are 4 books in the series. There's Lonesome Dove, Streets of Laredo, Dead Man's Walk, and Comanche Moon, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 3rd book in timeline.
There are 2 more prequel books and then 1 more book after this. Am I doing my math right?
So it looks like, there's 2 before it. But read this one first.
Yes.
This is the one that came out first. This is the one to read.
Yeah. My father actually read this book as well.
Yes.
And so I pushed him to read it.
And his thoughts? I know some of his thoughts.
He loved it as well. Yeah. He also read all the books of the series.
Yeah.
Like, he just continued on.
Yeah.
So I haven't even read all those yet.
You're a fake fan.
I'm a fake fan, apparently.
Your favorite book of all time.
I know.
Wow.
Oh,
this is so. It topped Hyperion.
It
topped. What are your other? Demon in White.
Yep.
It topped. What are some of your other favorites?
I mean, Sword of Kaigen is up there for
it
me.
is? Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
I love Sword of Kaigen.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So it topped all of those.
Topped all of them.
Is your favorite.
Ender's
I love
Game.
That. Yes. So to give I guess let's talk spoiler-free pitch. What's the book about? get somebody to convince them, not just it being your favorite book, but why should they read it? What could they expect getting into Lonesome Dove?
The basic story is 2 Texas Rangers have a cattle company down in Texas, and they decide to run a cattle train up to Montana to set up a new ranch in Land of Opportunity. That is it. That's the story. That's it. Everything built. So that's A plot, technically.
Yep.
B plot is really just so many different aspects of how characters live life and deal with death. Is a big chunk of this book. It's hard to make it very succinct. I think there's a bunch of different messages that could come through this book, but I would say the central one is
without saying what the message is, just what's it cover, because let's keep very spoiler free. Let's let people take what they will from it. So
I think it's about you get to define how you live your life, and that no one else can really put that definition on you on what you should do, how you should live your life.
And we'll explore that more. Okay, yeah.
But that comes with consequences. That if you were the decider of how you live,
still spoiler for that.
Is that? I mean,
no, just like I want people to be able to read that and take what they will from it. Let them read. See,
okay, to be extra generic.
Yeah.
It's about life. It's about the human condition.
That's
what makes it literature.
I just thought you were going into more to your interpretation of it and all that.
Sure.
I know you're getting excited.
Excited.
Okay. So to give some groundwork for this takes place in the 1870s. It's a fictional book. Takes place in the 1870s, post-Civil War in America, the West, Texas, Montana. It's very much the Western man's Western book. Yep. It is known, you will see on lists, it's considered the best Western book of all time. So obviously if you love Westerns, read it. I would say even if Westerns aren't your favorite genre, it's not my favorite genre. And I loved it. And so even take that. So if Westerns aren't your thing, you will still find that the book will floor you in many ways. So trust from a Western fan and a non-Western fan, it works for both. Why does it work? If you are a character-first reader, all the categories are likely going to be 5 stars for Rich, all the things we talk about. But if the book does one thing better than any other, it is objectively character work. Objectively, the characters are, I would go as far to say, I love my other books. It's not my favorite book of all time. I can't say that. It's definitely top 20, definitely top 20. But I would say it just has the best characters I've ever read in a book.
That's completely fair. I fully understand. To me, if I had to pick 2 categories, it's that combined with prose.
Mine would be that plus message. It would have to be.
That's fair too.
So there's a lot of answers here. So
spoiler alert.
No.
All of my categories are 5s.
Well,
I was floored across all of them.
Well, here's some more people that loved it, right? So if you're a Joe Abercrombie fan, Stephen King fan, you will probably love this book. Those set characters down in this world, let them explore. If you are more plot focused, it won't if you're plot focused, you'll still like it, but it's not the focus point. It's still 5 stars from Rich, I get that. But just to give you expectation, it's characters, it's message. Don't expect any intricately the plot is what it's known for, even though it's really well done. Don't expect that. Don't go in going, okay, when's the next thing happening in the very next chapter? This is no Red Rising is what I'm saying, Yeah, of course. So other people that love this, it's Stephen King's favorite book of all time. Brian Lee Durfee's, I believe it's one of his, if not his favorite book of all time. Mike's fantasy book reviews, it's in his top 10. Matt's fantasy book reviews, it's his second favorite of all time. If you like things, I also have down here Gone with the Wind, Count of Monte Cristo. I have not read those, but I've heard those are good comparisons to go. If you love those, you'd probably like a book like this. If you want to read the book, check our affiliate link in the description below. We get a little helping of that. I think we get $2 by the end if 100 people click on it.
Nice.
So if you want to help out, check out that affiliate link. You had a patron book club as well with Lonesome Dove.
That still today is probably one of my favorite book clubs I've actually had, which facilitated by our Discord, which was amazing.
They love the book too?
Oh yeah, no, it's everyone's. It was everyone's like one of their favorite books they've ever read.
Kendall,
like,
wasn't it
across
Kendall's
the board.
third favorite ever? I think it was her top 3.
It's in her top 3, and
Shout out Kendall.
yeah, and Kendall brought a very unique perspective to the discussion that I wouldn't have gotten in from just thinking about it myself
Incredible.
or many others. I got to see the book in a whole new light. It was amazing for me.
It's one of those books you need a book club for.
Hi, Kendall. Hi, everyone else. You were great. It was a good book club. Favorite.
See, that's the reason why you should join our book club. We do talk, so books we read, and we have a monthly book that we pick, the patrons pick for us, and we read together. We have a Discord call. We all talk about the book, and we'll do stuff randomly too, like Lonesome Dove, and just have chats like that.
Also, Kendall's the one that pushed me to read this. So I already wanted to read this for a
better
while,
thank
but
her,
because she was like, now we're putting the book club on the calendar. I'm like, all right, now I got to read it. And so I'm so glad I made the time. It was wonderful.
A while ago, we had a video about favorite authors, favorite books, and I mentioned Stephen King's favorite was Lonesome Dove, and I read the description to you.
Yeah.
And your reaction, I was looking back to it, your reaction was, that sounds like the perfect book. That sounds amazing. That sounds like the book just right for me. And a year later, here we are.
Oh, interesting.
You can see your reaction from way back then. Now, online, this is... don't even pay attention to Goodreads, but 4.5 plus has the Pulitzer. You don't need to look at Goodreads when it has the Pulitzer.
We don't read many Pulitzer Prize winning books on this channel.
No, we read Action Kapow Kapang.
Ka-chow. Ka-chow.
So, spoiler-free rating, Rich, which we already know from you. What is it?
5 fucking stars. 5 goddamn fucking stars. It's floored me. It's perfect. I love it. We've moved away from the whole idea of calling a book perfect, but the book is perfect. I'm sorry.
Not a single word.
Not a single word must be changed. It's literary
all heads
perfection.
must bow, all tongues must utter. The greatest.
The greatest. That's a good line. That's a reference to something.
So here's the sad.
If you came up with that, that's pretty good.
Well, here's the sad thing: is I heard it from Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson probably heard it from somewhere else. But I'm going to reference Mike Tyson. I know he didn't come up with this, but that's where I remember hearing it from.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that was Mike Tyson. So I gave this a 5 stars. Floored me.
Yay!
Floored me.
We agree.
Yes, and the only reason I'm letting this is your favorite book, so I won't tread on you. But I just want to say I might come in and start getting a little hyped over here too. So just
okay. No,
I'll give you. I want you to have your space though.
I do think if you came across if you gave this like a 3, like you were neutral on it, I'd be very surprised. Like I remember recommending this like going because of how much this is a character focused book. I'm like, Austin's at least gotta really like it. Yeah. Even though I know it's not your genre. So like
it's not
the
my
genre fits to me.
Well, but when I finished the book, I gave it a 4.5. I've had a week to sit on it, and it's gone up to a 5.
Oh, it's those characters that are sitting with you.
It's a lot,
and the message,
we'll talk about it. So, if I had to say, if you are a fan of the art of writing, this book, which we'll get into when we talk about characters in the spoiler section, literally taught me things that I didn't know about how to build characters, and that lessons that I kind of pulled from it that I'd like to talk about when we get to sections like that.
Oh, sure.
And
there's specifically something on a technique of writing that we've talked about briefly before that I think this is such a good explanation of why the rule is wrong and that there's an exception to the rule. We've talked about it before, but we'll get into it.
Okay. We will talk about that.
Is there anything else? Thing is, the book is pretty, like, always said is like it's a cattle drive from Texas to Montana.
Yeehaw.
That is the book. Characters grow through some stuff, and it's a character journey.
Yeah.
There we go. Go read the book.
It is a Western epic of sorts. It is they call it the last great Western.
I'll also commit to this.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, Austin is the one that's mostly responding to comments on videos. I will especially commit like the comments to this video down below. That's going to be me. I'm a commenter. So I will be the one. So you,
should we start signing -R-A?
Probably.
We should start doing that.
But specifically for this video, I will be down in the comments, respond, and we'll be chatting. It's going to be a good time.
That would be helpful though if we did sign -r-a.
Probably. Because
Okay.
there are a couple comments in there that like I did
Occasionally you
respond to.
do something.
Occasionally.
I just feel like I don't do that because I'm like, it's always me. So
Yeah, I know. I'll try.
okay.
I'm not good with that stuff.
Are you anything else spoiler free before we get into we kept our promise, it's about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Do you want anything else to convince these people, these
Convince
peons?
Okay, for all of you action lovers, I think this definitely has one of the most brutal action scenes that was just so hyped. It's a scene that was just incredibly memorable to me that I thought this book does have quite a good amount of action.
What was the scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I'm
Good.
teasing you like now you want to get to it.
I was testing you too, just to see if you were going to spoil or not. You know? Yeah.
I do need to be tested sometimes.
Yeah.
I can't be trusted.
Keep track of that brain.
All right.
Okay.
I think we're good. Spoilers.
Spoiler warning. Give fair warning. This will not be a concise video. We will pontificate. We sit back if you're driving, you're having coffee. We're going to be talking about it for a while. If you love this book, this will be on the internet forever to represent your thoughts of your favorite book.
Oh, I'm so excited for that.
So
this is lovely.
Emotional impact. And we might have some, because we usually do fantasy sci-fi a lot of the times. We might have a lot of new viewers for this one or people that are more in the Western. So we have 6 categories we go through: emotional impact, thought-provokingness, characters, plot, world building and setting in this case as well, and prose. So we're going to break all those down, talk about all of them, and let's go. So emotional impact.
Emotional impact,
out of 5 stars.
I gave it a 5. 5 stars. It floored me.
Have to. I gave 4.5 stars. Spectacular.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what are kind of the feelings that this book is supposed to make you feel that you thought it was?
Whew. A lot. So a lot of the feelings of this book are very, I think it kind of sometimes the scenes will hit you like a train, and sometimes it'll hit you much later. A lot of the feelings I get from this book. So it has your action. It has your, I think it's a lot of sorrow. Here's what it is. I'll explain this easily. I think it's a comedy that turns into a tragedy. And I'm saying that because I think Matt, I don't want to get this wrong, Matt's book reviews might have said this, I was seeing this online, but it's funny and it's got hilarious moments, but it's got tragic moments too. So I think the feeling it's going for is it's a fun action ride, but it's also sad and tragic at the same time. It's this demystifying the West in a way, of just showing you how everything isn't all hunky-dory in the West. It's gritty. It's real.
It's not your John Wayne West.
No.
Nice, perfect sets. Never, the men are all gentlemen. And no, the West was a hard place with hard people in tough lives.
Yeah. Would you agree with that? What would you say it's going for?
I think that's a really good description of it, of a comedy turned tragedy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think it is a character study that does focus quite a bit on death, and it focuses on like how do you experience it. Specifically the character Newt. What I loved about his character and what he made me feel throughout this book, Newt experiences almost every type of death that your character can go through, and I'll go through that a little bit later. But it just made me feel and remind me of all the times that I've experienced death in my life. And the death of, by death, it's almost more of an ending rather than death. Because
Metaphor,
because it's not just death in the literal sense of a character, a friend, a loved one, a sibling, whatever dying. It is also the loss of a friend, of like, you're never going to see them again. That's the death of the friendship. It's gone. The death of a mentor, the death of a hero. All of these literal and metaphorical deaths were just put me into this constantly self-reflecting mood. And there was a lot of this book of constantly making me think about my own life and how I am experiencing things and whether or not I'm doing all right, experiencing those things.
Oh my God.
That's what this book made. Like, it made me feel all of those things.
Should I ask how you're doing more?
I'm doing good.
Oh, okay, just checking. Just checking.
No, but
yeah.
it just makes you
definitely
reminisce on how did I go through this. This is a lot of these examples are extreme examples because it's the West, but what little taste of it have I experienced, and how did I react to it? Did I react the same way these characters did? Would I have reacted the same way? I don't know, but that definitely made me reflective. Beyond that, the emotions, it definitely wants to make you laugh, even up to the end. It's pretty funny. The writing of here is just top notch, but he also just plays with your heartstrings. You're supposed to laugh at characters. You're supposed to love them. You're supposed to feel so much sympathy and pity, empathy. There's not a lot of hate in the book. I don't hate many characters in the book. There's no.
I was
going to
say people hate each other in the book for sure.
Oh yeah. But even the characters you're supposedly supposed to hate, like there's some pretty awful characters.
Elmira sucks.
Elmira sucks.
Yeah.
But I can sympathize with her, and the book does such a great job setting up her character. I understand where she's coming from. It doesn't make any of her actions right. It doesn't make it any good. But you see how hard the world is and how hard she's come up, and you get that she broke.
How was he able to... Larry? We haven't even mentioned the author's name, Larry McMurtry.
Yeah.
My goodness. In the spoiler free, we got Larry McMurtry wrote this. How do you think Larry McMurtry got across those emotions out of you? How did he pull? Just the characters being amazing, but can you bring a specific scene? Like how did that work? What made you laugh? What made you cry? I mean, honestly, the only reason this doesn't get 5 for me is I didn't cry, and I wanted a good cry. And I there were moments where
I cried at Gus's death.
Yeah.
I cried at Jake Spoon's death.
A lot of the deaths, right?
A lot of the deaths. But I was also just...
Also, you need to take a minute for coughing.
I think I do.
All right, we're back. Got your water. Okay.
I'm all good.
Yes.
I'll say if I had to pick one character that I most emotionally felt for, it would be Lorena. Lorena Wood.
Hi, Laura.
I loved her character, and the amount of sympathy that I had for her and her struggle and journey just was overwhelming. It was amazing how much I connected with her character, that I was invested with her the entire way.
I know we're trying to hold off because we're talking about message next.
Yeah.
And I literally love so much about Lorena and her character. I guess, let's point out a scene.
Sure.
What scene worked for you? Your favorite scene. We can read it at the end, but the sign scene?
The sign scene is
to set people up who maybe haven't read the book.
Arguably my favorite.
Set up that scene for people who are listening who haven't read the book that are here.
Sure. We'll read. I'm literally going to read like several pages at the very end.
Yeah.
Going through this whole scene. But the scene sets up of the Hat Creek Cattle Company. They have a sign, and Augustus made this sign. He's the only one that can actually really read of the whole group.
He thinks he's smart.
He thinks he's smart, and the Larry McMurtry takes the time to describe why this sign was created and all the names that are on it and the story of the creating of this sign, of all the little characters of John going, oh, why is my name not on here? Not John. Josh.
Yeah.
Josh was going like, why is my name not on here? It's like, I don't know, you don't read. He's like, I'll put your name on here, sure. It's like, well, why is my name so much shorter than everyone else's? Because he, again, can't read. And he thinks so he asks, like, well, I could put Joshua on there. That's longer. Do you want that? Yeah, it's longer. I'll take that one. That's so just weird. And then by the end of it, he puts a Latin saying at the end. And Gus is like, I'm so upset that no one's like, giving me credit for putting a Latin saying. No one's asked me what it means. And finally someone does ask him. He's like, and Gus doesn't know what it means.
I think Paul asks him or something.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, it's a Latin saying. What does it mean? I don't know. It's a saying. It's, It's meant to be said. It speaks for itself.
It's just those quick. It's
every character gets a little moment of like, oh, that's who they are. It's a wonderful setup for before the whole journey can begin.
Yeah, and it's something about focusing on those small details and also the context and situational humor of it. Mm-hmm. So it's as if a sitcom was literature, you know?
Sure. It's all the stuff with Lorena, which you laugh at the beginning. And it's really tragic. Mainly, you don't laugh at Lorena, you laugh at like Newt not understanding that Lorena is a whore. And not getting it. Like he understands, but he doesn't understand what sex is. And so it's weird. But how he experiences that, he doesn't get Lorena's job, and so you laugh at Newt on his ignorance. But then Lorena herself is just such a tragic character, but it's not written that way. I don't know. She doesn't have self-pity for herself. Like it's a job to her, but you feel for her in a way that maybe other writers would like lean into the self-pity and the overwhelming sympathy that you should have, but Larry Mercer takes his time with it. You sympathize with her, not her station, is more specifically.
And the reason you sympathize for all these characters is they just feel so real. Why do they feel real? We will talk about that character for sure. But
what was the most emotional moment for you?
A little corny to say this. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of moments that were tearjerkers for a bunch of people. I think the very last line was the most emotional I got. I think the book ended. It's why I just sit. So can I read the last line? So here we go. That leading up to the last line. Made the church. This is Dillard speaking. Made the church folks mad. They thought I should give context first. He's back in Texas. He's back in Lonesome Dove. Check the burning. Call's there. Yeah,
he was bringing back Gus's body.
Yes, and burned down. Everything completely burned down, and he's looking at this. He's looking at the remains, and Dillard, back in Lonesome Dove, says, made the church folks mad. They thought if he was going to roast himself, he ought to have at least rolled the pioneer out the door. They've had to sing hymns to a fiddler ever since. Call walked over and stood where the saloon had been. There was nothing left but pale ashes and a few charred boards. When she left, Wands couldn't stand it, Dillard said. He sat in her room a month, and then he burnt it. Who? Call asked, then looked at the ashes. The woman, Dillard whispered. The woman. They say he missed that whore. Leaves you with that, and that's really, I mean, what did you take away from that ending? Oh, my God. Oh, all the feels for me.
One, I think that feels so different because of how long the journey was and how much that he just sat with it and then ended all, which one reflects a little bit in Gus's death. You know how Gus could have lived long, but he chose to go out the way he wanted to, and it's seen in far more noble light. And then you see, the saloon owner's death in a similar way of like he went out on his own terms, and it's more pathetic. I don't know, like that's
I get you.
Interesting way to play with it a little bit. It makes you rethink Gus's death a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it is a genius line. The part that, the way it's a genius line is when Call is asking this, and I've looked so much into this book. That line hit me. I'm going like, why is it hitting me so much? So Call, when he's asking who, like, looking into the ashes and asking that. And when Dillard says the woman, they say he missed that whore. That's a double meaning where Dillard's talking about the woman, but the reason Call's asking who is his mind. He's kind of thinking about Maggie still. And when Dillard's saying that the woman, they say he missed that whore. He's talking about Call too.
Yeah.
And at the very end, it just kind of hits you with, Call's looking one way. He's looking this, and the text is saying he missed that whore, but what it actually is meaning is it just cuts off abruptly with Call having to reflect to the point that he does miss Maggie.
Yeah.
And it just kind of leaves you going like the very end, the no resolution for Call, still to the very end, but it's acknowledged finally.
Mm-hmm.
And you just sit and sulk, and it feels like such a you just stopped mid, the story's not over yet, and just cuts you right off.
The amount of times the author does that, of making you just the emotional cutoff of like, wait a minute, that's where it ends?
Yeah.
For me, it was everything with July Johnson.
Oh, July Johnson.
Oh God.
Come
and
on.
the
now.
little girl, and they finally like come together, and
Yeah.
you think like, okay, this is an interesting setup. This kind of wild little girl that's so competent and helping out the deputy get along, and just you think that's gonna, oh wow, I'm gonna see them all come together. What's gonna be happening with these characters? And Blue Duck just kills them all, and then they're gone. Next chapter, just what? They're all dead? What? They're just what do you mean they're all dead? You spent so much time setting them up.
Right.
I thought they were gonna That was probably one of the most emotional moments for me. Of
That's
like
fair.
that, it's that'd be a spoiler for that other book. You know that book that we talk about a lot? It's like the reason the channel exists, like that series.
Yeah.
And you know that death?
Yeah. Like that.
Like,
yeah.
You're like, oh, what could have been?
I follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that moment for, yeah.
Yes.
I'm nice and vague. But no, it's the what could have been.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in this story. It's like,
mm-hmm.
The what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately you have to move forward.
Yeah. So with a lot of character deaths happen here, and Jake Spoon.
Ooh.
So that emotional gut punch, how'd that hit you?
Complicated. Because you go from like kinda liking Jake Spoon. You know, he's a little bit of a rascal, but he's not that bad. And then you go to really start to hate Jake Spoon. And then you sympathize with him a little bit. You really start to like to hate him until the very end. And you kind of see why people did like him. And his last message to Newt, and trying to be a decent role model at the end of giving Newt his horse, and oof. And he went out like a man. And it just was a little bit more respect of like he had to accept, he knew that what he did was wrong, and there's nothing, can't walk it back. And he could try and ask for forgiveness, but it's just, he knows what he did was wrong. He has to accept it.
I think the way, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you feel the same, but just the way McMurtry's able to keep it so tense is every character like that with Jake Spoon and Newt, every character has a very different relationship with everybody else. That's an obvious way of saying, of course, characters have that, but take Lorena, for example. The entire crew all views Lorena a certain specific way that makes it the more tense, as you see like how Jake Spoon treats Lorena versus Gus treats Lorena versus Newt idealizes versus Xavier obsesses versus everybody having their relationship with Lorena. And then you have Lorena who falls in love with Gus eventually because Gus saves her. And as they're going up now, Lorena wants Gus, but Gus wants Clara. So it's all those lover, not even a love triangle, lug quad, zillion. So there, even how the characters view each other. So Jake Spoon and how Newt at one point idolized Jake Spoon and then maybe didn't, but maybe at the end doesn't know how to feel. He doesn't have that father figure, and Call's not stepping up. So just every little scene is tense because the characters have their different motivation. I think a lot of our emotion, we're holding back too much because when we talk characters, I think we'll just flood it out there.
Yeah.
Because we could talk about the whole book and what, why this work, why doesn't this work? Just, I want to give you another chance of, was there a scene, like the sign scene, for example, a certain death scene? Was there something else that just stuck with you and you went, oh, that is why I got all the feels from the Lonesome Dove?
rapid fire, I guess, off that for me is
Yeah.
everything to do with Lorena being captured by Blue Duck and her ultimate rescue
Yeah.
was deeply emotional of her. A character that should be used to a certain level of trauma and something broke her. Like, that's how awful her experience was. So her being rescued by Gus, for me, it's death of, Roscoe and all them. Like, that hit me hard.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the ending with Call not actually acknowledging his son hurt. I'm like, you stupid idiot. Come on. He does everything but acknowledge him. Everything, and of course, Gus's death, everything beyond that. The whole book sticks in my head. It's hard to pin it down to one particular scene or another. Actually, one of them for me was, it was pretty rapid succession, but Newt losing, I think it was kind of back to back of his friend that got caught in the river and got bitten and died. And he got to see
Irishman.
Irishman. And he got to
Yeah.
see him die.
Yeah.
And then there was the other, Pat, like a couple days later, like it was next chapter, he just died. Like when they next time they crossed the river, they're like, where'd he go? It's like, oh, he died back there, got trampled.
Yeah.
And it's like,
oh,
what? That's it. And then we've already moved on. And so he got to experience like this weird emotion
Whiplash.
I gets to experience like the death firsthand and being up close and personal, seeing his friend die. And then another word, just, he didn't even know. He's just now dead. Don't even get to bury him.
Yep.
It's just moving on. That hit me.
That's great.
God, there's a lot to talk about there, but I'd say we move on to thought-provoking.
Let's do that. All right, we're back. Got our sneezes.
Yeah. A little
We're
sick.
We're going on to thought-provokingness. What did you give thought-provokingness out of 5 stars?
Well, I gave it 5, of course. All of them are 5s for me. So what did you give it?
5 stars.
Yeah.
Floored me. Floored me.
Let's start off with you then. What was the message of this book that really floored you?
So, covering the theme of the novel, I think a lot of them go under this theme. Mm-hmm. So the messages you can get, all the different characters have their messages, but it all comes under the theme of that cowboy reticence, that cowboy morality. Mm. And Lyric McMurtry's just kind of showing how that classic cowboy attitude comes at a cost. Mm-hmm. So the tragedy of it is, it's glamorized. You see these Westerns all kind of glamorize the cowboy era. This is your anti-Western Western.
Sure. It goes a step beyond of if there's the two types of Westerns, if you were to boil
You're about
to
say dichotomy. Go ahead. Be pretentious. Say it.
Sure. The dichotomy.
There you go. I saw you say that, and then no, let it out. We're talking about literature today.
We are.
Come on.
Yeah. You compare your John Wayne Western to your Clint Eastwood Westerns of like, okay, that's kind of the light and dark kind of Western. This goes that step beyond of, with Clint Eastwood being that more darker and Western, like, hey, the morality is like a little bit loose, it's that frontier justice.
Hero. He's coming
but he's
out
still,
there.
Thing is, he's not really your hero. You know what I mean? He does a lot of like bad stuff, and it's mostly for money. Like, he's not doing good stuff for the sake
your
of it.
What would you call it? Your Deadpool? What's Deadpool? Your anti-hero.
Yeah, he's kind of your anti-hero. He's still mostly good, but you don't really see the cost, because he's mostly just, he moves on. There's no real negative cost to him personally.
Sure.
Lonesome Dove has that kind of frontier justice, like you're a cowboy type of morality. And yeah, you do see the cost of, like, from personal relationships to just how they live and die, how quick it is, how people move on. It feels so fleeting.
Yeah. I mean, that message couldn't be more true in Call's case, in Woodrow Call, who you see him and Gus, the reason they're the two main characters is they are opposites, but the best of friends, and they frustrate each other. And you see their different philosophies on life, where Gus enjoys more of the simple pleasures, and Call doesn't want to open up, be emotional, talk about things he regrets. He wants to ignore it. Your typical man's man, your Western character who doesn't want to acknowledge that at all, because if he doesn't do that, he can keep moving forward. And he has a purpose in life. When he was fighting the Indians, he had a purpose in life. When they were fighting the Mexicans, he had a purpose. But now he's kind of just a lonesome dove and aimless. The reason they go to Montana in the first place is, well, it's something. Jake Spoon, it's something to do.
It's something to do. And then once he's decided, I have a purpose. And once he has a direction, he's nearly unstoppable. But he needs a tangible purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And kind of that tragedy at the end where he's the one that doesn't own up to the past. He doesn't end up, he kind of gives Newt a bunch of stuff at the end, but doesn't actually say the words.
Yeah, he does everything but say it.
Yeah.
Even Newt kind of, by the end, even Newt, and Newt's a thick one. He's thick, but even he gets it.
Yes.
He's just waiting for him to say it.
And even that tragedy in the end with Call living and Gus dying, Gus kind of figures out life by the end. He's the more fun, open up character. He tells Newt that Call's his father because he knows Call never will. And the tragedy at the end is Call's the one that lives, but we know he still won't own up to it. Kind of that perspective on mortality where the person who lives, the person who died is the one who had more of an overcame their flaws more. The person that lives on, Call, that classic Western, is going to continue living his tragedy after the book's over.
Well, ultimately, Gus didn't really have much of a thing to overcome. Like he was a character that he didn't really need to change too much. He was explored, and he doesn't have his flaws have basically been overcome by the time you get to it. And, he lives and he lives on his terms, and he dies by his terms, and he accepts it, and he moves on. But he has his problem with his love. That's another thing. But
sure.
No, that's the thing is he's complete. He doesn't need to go on a character journey. It was Call that needed it. And he still failed it basically at the end. He couldn't actually do it. Oh, God.
So a lot of those themes about death, what did you take away? So that part of the themes I'm already talking about here, but what's something that you latched onto that was very impactful?
I'll talk about a little bit two factors. So one, it's how death is treated, and how death is treated by the dying and the already living is explored in every single angle in this book. You get every kind of perspective of death.
I love that.
Which, that it's not just a character that you love dies. No, it's every type of a random death. How you take sudden death. How do you treat a really long drawn out death? How do you respond to suicide or murder or death of old age, a common disease, anything. Every type of death you can possibly think of, this book has it in there.
What about the death of a channel where we start getting less and less views? That's not in there.
The death of a cattle company.
Damn it, it covered that. Shoot. I'll be darned.
I'll be darned.
So that fact that it covers death from all those
death
angles.
Death of innocence. Death of a dream with Lorena. Of how much she's just trying to get to San Francisco. A little bit of call in her, of she can keep moving forward as long as she has a direction and a purpose. And you take away that purpose from her and look at how much it just crumbles around her.
Well, also her identity changes in a way too. Her other purpose, everybody was attracted to her. She could provide her body. But then at a certain point with Gus, she couldn't do anything to keep Gus with her over Clara. She even kind of loses a part of herself, that identity crisis, that death of who am I?
Yeah. She's lived on the fact that she's desirable physically.
Yeah.
And that's gotten her through life. It's caused her a lot of problems, but it also has put food on her table.
Yep.
She's able to eat and survive. People come help her because of it, but to ultimately get the things she wants. And how much does she really want Gus? How much of that is really just kind of trauma bonding of, to some degree, he's actually, it's two factors of, one, he was actually always kind to her and didn't, even when he bought time with her, it was just he didn't treat her like a thing, where so many others did, and where Jake Spoon lied about that and lied saying like, oh, I care about you. He ultimately didn't. It's all lies. It's all just him treating her as an object, and Gus didn't treat her like a person, at which she is severely lacking in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Gus saving her from some of the most horrific things you could possibly imagine doesn't hurt to make you maybe fall in love. But I don't know. I didn't even really buy her falling in love. Like, what if that was really love? You know what I mean? It was like he was like her anchor of.
Is it kind of love though? I bought that.
It's like the feeling is real, but it's different. It's more of she has nothing, and the only sense of security and safety that she's ever really had in her life, and to some degree of confidence, was Gus.
Well, it's the same way she fell in love with Jake Spoon, but just she fell in love with a better person the second time around. Because she also fell in love with Jake because of what he could provide, like going out. This magnetic character who says she can do all these things, bring you to San Francisco. She fell in love with the idea of him.
Mm-hmm.
With Gus, fell in love with something he actually did.
Yeah.
So it just feels like more of a real love because Jake was more fake and Gus actually did actions to show he's more worthy of admiration. So you loved that coming of age of Newt, how he experienced death, how death was focused on in the book. I think a lot of there's probably a lot. The reason it won the Pulitzer, I think Pulitzer really likes to look at a theme. Pulitzer Prize, you imagine it's literature. You want to look at what did you mean by that line there. Let's break that down. And so was there something outside the theme of demystifying the West that you got as well? Was there something about when McMurtry was writing this? I think he says himself that it was he did want to do that. That was his intention. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes across. Was there something else that you got out of it as a large, broad theme? Or does that cover most of it? And then we can go deeper.
I mean, demystifying the West, how do people handle death is probably one of the bigger ones. And then how should you live your life? Because you have both Gus and Call kind of live it, like they have frequent conversations of each one saying they're living their life wrong and they're missing out and they're so that's a big one, and it kind of bleeds over into a bunch of others of like, how should you direct your life? What should be your purpose? Is it important to have a purpose even at all? That seems to be a big theme throughout most of the book.
What's an answer you came to? What will you take away from Lonesome Dove and change the way you live your life?
Ultimately, Gus was wrong because he couldn't commit to a purpose and a direction, that he became fairly aimless and he loses a lot of the connections around him. But he does focus on people and connections, but he's pretty aimless. Call disregards all connection for his purpose. And the right direction is pick a direction and stick to it. Have a purpose. Find your North Star. But don't disregard the connections along the way, and also be willing to change.
Fantastic message.
A lot of this was
amazing.
What is Gus' biggest flaw? Ultimately, he's in a better space than Call, but
look at his relationship with Clara.
He was unwilling to change. That's ultimately what, like, why wasn't he with Clara? He wasn't willing to change to what she needed. She needed something, he wants something, and he's not willing to change an inch about himself for that and for her. Why did he die? Because he wasn't willing to live his life without a leg. he would have to live his life differently, and he would have to change, and he was not willing to.
This is from Clara herself. Her response
It's
to
the one you actually have bookmarked.
Well, yes, I wanted to have something bookmarked. This is this is what Clara is saying to Call.
Mm-hmm.
Call says, "I'll write him," she said. "I'll see he gets your name if I have to carry the letter to Montana myself. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm sorry you and Gus McCrae ever met. All you two done was ruin one another, not to mention those close to you. Another reason I didn't marry him was because I didn't want to fight you for him every day of my life. You men and your promises, they're just excuses to do what you plan to do anyway, which is leave. You think you've always done right. That's your ugly pride, Mr. Call, but you never did right, and it would be a sad woman that needed anything from you. You're a vain coward for all your fighting. I despised you then for what you were, and I despise you now for what you're doing." So why Gus and Call are so important? They complete each other's flaws and each other's purposes. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You always hear those podcasters who are on the business side of podcasts or like get your grind up, which we are. Just get your reading numbers up. Get that grind. Come on. Yeah.
Rise and read.
Yeah.
Play off of Rise and Grind.
Oh, I thought like you read Rising. No?
Also Red Rising.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
So I think from that, a lot of people say, pick your goal, know your why, and put your blinders up. Don't get distracted. It's kind of what Calls his flaw is. He'll put his blinders up, go toward the purpose, and just forget about the people next to him, and that there's more important than just the goal in mind, like you're saying there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gus, who has no blinders, but is just going in circles, like So
yeah,
that's awesome to take away.
Yeah,
that's so good.
It's fascinating how stubborn Gus is, really. How open and understanding he kind of is, of how willing that looking at his relationship with Lorena is kind of proof of how much of a kind of empathetic person he really is. He is a good man. Just there's a lot of rough around the edges to say it lightly.
Yeah,
but he's so stubborn on change. He can't change himself, and he's not willing to change for anyone else.
No.
Not willing to lift a finger about it, which that's tragic.
A lot of this comes back to that tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's again funny comedy turned to tragedy, and there is I guess here's another takeaway from Lorena and Clara and Elmira and the relationships in this world, how love works.
Oh, yeah. My God.
You want to jump in on that? Yeah.
Yeah. So one, the reason why Elmira is such a good character for this, she is Lorena's foil of seeing like where Lorena could be, what a ever so slightly different path would be for her.
Yeah.
And it's good that Lorena doesn't choose that path, but yeah, how do they treat love, desire, where a lot of it has been separated? So especially as this book is trying to illustrate that out in the West, desire and like sex is basically commodified and completely divorced and separated from love, like in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how everyone thinks about it. No one thinks about sex, desire, and love being fundamentally intertwined. Nobody thinks that way, which is interesting for this book. And so seeing that perspective.
I think one person does. July Johnson's got a sweetheart down there.
Oh,
poor July Johnson.
Poor July Johnson.
So there's an exception, but continue with your point.
That's the way of the world. July is just not.
He's not with it.
He's not with it.
He's not with the times. He's living in the 21st century. Everybody else is back in 1870.
He's so dumb.
I know.
He's so dumb.
Yeah, he can't really. He's a deer in headlights and doesn't see the headlights.
Oh God, he's so pathetic.
But your point about the love. Sorry to cut you off there.
But I'm interested in what you have to say about that, because that seems to be what the book was trying to explore. in several different aspects.
Yeah.
And different characters, not just Lorena. But how did you take that? Of what is the message and point of that?
So I took two big concepts out of it. One, just looking at Lorena and how every man treated her kind of represented, Jake Spoon, your con man. Everyone knows a Jake Spoon.
Yeah.
Newt, everybody knows a Newt that idolized this older woman, that Xavier, the obsessive.
Yeah.
And Gus, the one that actually treats you right. And Call, who completely ignores.
Does Gus even treat? Gus doesn't even treat her like completely right.
No, you're right, but relative, yeah.
Relatively speaking, he treats her like an actual human being.
That's right. So that's what I mean by right. So she's a human. We're called to ignore. So
that bar is real low.
I'd fall in love with Gus too if he was the only guy.
Oh no, I completely get.
I get it, Lorena.
There's only shit options, and that's the least.
Yes.
Yeah.
And kind of that view of romanticizing the West and seeing from Lorena's point of view, just woman in this one town where it's all guys, and Lorena just feeling completely trapped.
Yeah.
And so her feeling, what kind of agency do you have whatsoever? She wants to go to San Francisco. How does she get there? She still needs to use somebody to get there. And so that Lorena's point of view with how all the guys, how all the men and boys view Lorena puts to me and goes like that, just like exploring death in a way, also explores all those different fascinations about what love is or how you view it, and all of it mostly is sexual.
Yeah.
I can't think really Clara and Gus maybe. It's nice and more wholesome, but you have all these desires going on, and then the three different woman point of view that we get Elmira, Clara, and Lorena, who couldn't be more different. Clara, complete responsibility. And showing the utmost love and care for her dying husband. Elmira, the opposite of responsibility, and she ends up dying in the end. And just seeing how Elmira is the opposite of Clara in many ways. And the Lorena is, if you had to pick, you're in between, where she is not a bad person. She's also doesn't have things figured out. And so you have three of these women in
she doesn't
their respective
do anything bad. It's just her mindset, and she makes poor choices.
Which you could say is forced upon her, though.
Yeah,
and so it's tough too.
She makes a poor decision following Jake Spoon.
Yeah,
but also, what other decision was there?
Yeah,
she's left with nothing but bad options.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes bad ones along the way. So. The people she chooses to trust consistently are bad.
Right. It makes you think about, are you just friends with people because you went to the same school, Yes. Are we all we got?
Do we hang out outside of the podcast as much?
Never.
Or if we didn't have the podcast, how often would we actually see each other a month?
Salt Lake wouldn't have happened.
Oh, yeah. Salt Lake wouldn't have happened. I would maybe see you
occasionally,
once every couple months.
You'd turn me into a Liam, wouldn't you?
Oh,
you just forget about your friends.
That hurts me.
I'm sorry.
I need to call Liam up again.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, I visited him, but that was a year ago.
Yeah, get on top of that.
He lives all the way in New York. It's like a whole hour from the train.
Let's just say in this relationship, I'm driving to you more than you're driving to me.
That is true.
See?
That is true. To be fair, I did have to renovate my spare bedroom.
No caveats. I was just stating the opinion.
Would your fiance let you turn your spare bedroom into a library?
Nope.
So that's why we have it this way.
Touche. So that's a part of the message as well. How relationships, love is handled. So love and death. Love, death, and robots. So you have, that's part of it, but I kind of want to talk about an additional one. Let's see, have some thoughts on that.
Go ahead.
The view of this world, so how the West works in Larry McMurtry's world, and showing you the tragedy and the consequences, and how just like in Lorena's position, where Lorena is forced between bad options, almost the world puts you in this place where you have to make bad decisions, or you have to choose the worst of all evils, where we have two death scenes in particular. We have the one where killing Jake Spoon, and then we have, the two horse thieving. Is that what it was with Jake Spoon? So two different scenarios where there was horse thieving. Jake Spoon and the Suggs and all of them stealing horses, and the other one where the woman and children, the Indians, all stole horses or stole from the company. Do you remember that before Dietz' death?
Yeah.
So those two scenes, we have the killing of Jake Spoon, and then when Dietz dies. And in those two scenes, the Jake Spoon scene, Gus and Call and all of them see the stealing of the horses, and they react by showing justice, just being like, hey, you're dead, Jake. No matter how much our history goes back,
you're a horse thief.
You're
There's
dead.
nothing worse than a horse thief.
Hanging, done. And then in the other horse thief scene, where it's does it say Indians in the book too, or is it? I'll keep to the So it's another horse thief where Dietz ends up dying. The way he dies is they show mercy.
Yeah,
they show mercy to the horse thieves, and they show, oh, it's women and children. We can't do anything there, so they kind of let it be. But then someone comes up and kills Dietz. The one time they try to do something good in the world and try to show mercy, try to be good people, oh, look, you just got killed.
Yeah.
So, well, you just lost Dietz. And that
Dietz.
Can I read that Dietz death scene?
Oh,
that
hurt.
Can I read that scene?
Oh, Dietz.
Can I that paragraph?
Go
I was
ahead.
going to save it for prose, but it's gut-wrenching. Okay. This is just the paragraph where he's dying. Then it seemed to Dietz that something was happening to Mr. Gus's head. It had grown larger. He couldn't see it all well. It was as if he were looking through water, as if he had come back to the old river and were lying on the bottom, looking at Mr. Gus through the shallow brown water. Mr. Gus's head had grown larger, was floating off. It was rising toward the sky like the moon. He could barely see it, and then couldn't see it at all. But the waters parted for a moment, and he saw a blade of grass close to his eye. Then, to his relief, the brown waters came back and covered him again, deep this time and warm. Just even the way it's described from Dietz's point of view. Jesus.
Oh,
my God. So.
Yeah, that's rough. Oh, God, I hurt when Dietz died. That was painful.
Yeah.
Dietz was so good.
So you have in both cases showing Jake Spoon no mercy, showing the woman, children, all the Indians there mercy. And then you also have at the very end where the blue duck, he evil.
Pretty evil.
The most evil guy ends up even going out on his own terms. Not justice isn't even completely shown, because instead of getting hung or killed, he ends up kind of he takes down one of the guards, jumps off with him, ends up doing goes off on his own terms instead of getting
he does a whole
killed.
Swan dive. Yeah.
So even that, just nobody gets the justice they actually deserve for the most part in this book.
Where maybe Jake Spoon could have deserved some mercy. He was awful to Lorena, but he was in a tough spot with the Suggs brothers. But then also, how much of that is, if you put Gus in that situation, he would never gotten in that problem in the first place. And Jake's a coward. And cowards get hung, apparently. That's the punishment.
Yep. Keep into that law.
How many people died because Jake Spoon was just too much of a coward to actually say no.
Yeah.
And he gets to swing for it. Man, I think we'll be talking a little bit more about themes when it comes to specific characters as well, but that's a lot.
I have one last thing.
You have more?
I saw this commenter on Reddit said this, and I would have never picked up on this. A lot of this, like I'm seeing what people are thinking about, so I'm amalgamating my thoughts and thoughts here. So
I have not researched anything of anyone else's thoughts. This is just like my own thoughts.
Yeah, no, this is Zach Hahn's thoughts. Okay, this is what he says. Pointed out the reason I would have never known this is the Latin phrase on the sign uva, uvam, vivendo, varia. Mm-hmm. Did you ever look up what it meant?
No.
Right?
I didn't.
Like, why not, right?
Yeah,
it's so curious. What it actually means, it translates roughly to a grape that changes its color by looking at another grape. What do you take from that?
I mean, you become You become like those that you surround yourself with is a big part. Like Jake Spoon falls further and further into his degenerate life when he's with the Suggs brothers. Gus and Call, how much they influence each other and how they make up for each other's flaws in a way that keeps them the same. I don't know. What do you take from it?
I think it is that who you surround yourself with. And Zach kind of has an explanation here, but it is something like this. But my interpretation is Lonesome Dove is the whole company, and the reason they all kind of work together, but also are each other's poison in a way too, is because you all go under the same motto, or it's the reason there's such tragedy is everybody kind of takes something from somebody else, and you know that saying, your 5 closest friends make up who you are. They kind of just build to each other's flaws, where you'd want Gus and Call to you'd want them to join together, compensate for the other's flaws, but instead everyone just dives deeper into their flaws and dives deeper into.
Nobody in the group makes the others change.
Yeah. And you're surrounded by everybody who's not changing, so...
Well, it makes it go further of...
Yeah.
They're close to each other, but all of them have the mentality of, I know my friend's flaws, and I just kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to force him to change. I'm just going to... I know how to handle him. Which, that's... the simple route, but often if you are a really good friend, you try and force him to change.
Yeah.
Which Gus tries to do with Call at the very end. He does kind of force him. He's like, I'm just going to tell dude. Like, you're not going to, and you need to tell him. And so I will. So he does a little bit by the end.
But Call doesn't.
But Call doesn't even take that olive branch.
Because who's more stubborn than Call? Gus. Gus is just as stubborn. Like, if Call did something to try to help Gus.
Yeah, no. How much there's like, I mean, he tried. He tried to force Gus to, amputate the leg. And he's like, no, I'm going to kill you if you try.
It's a bunch of stubborn-headed sheep herders.
Wool-headed
sheep herders.
Oh, my God. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
How much they are similar. And then you also, the hopeful aspect is Newt. Newt seemed to be taking a lot of the positive. He started as a pretty blank slate.
Yeah.
And very, very ignorant, where the others kind of collectively raised him in the beginning.
Yeah.
And they didn't do a particularly great job.
Not a particularly good job.
No. But by the end of the ranch, he's quite a competent hand. He's leading the cattle company now. And he's doing a mighty fine job. Like, he grew up on this trip, and he takes a little bit from everyone. He does seem to have some of the same work ethic as Call. And he takes a little bit more of the lessons from Gus. Like, it's a bit hopeful. Like, he's starting to become a little bit the best of both Gus and Call.
If there is a most hopeful character, maybe it's him, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's nice to see that.
Yeah. So,
also Maggie. She's doing good. She's a good person. And generally is doing all right.
You want to talk about characters now?
Yeah.
Characters, what'd you give it out of 5 stars?
5. Yeah, it's 5
that
stars.
Low? I give it 6. 5 stars. Floored me.
Yeah.
Floored me.
I'm gonna go. Where's my?
You have your notepads right there?
My notepad, but also my phone.
To get a
I
list
just have
of the
list
characters?
of the characters.
I have a bunch of. I have them here too. I wrote them all down.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where.
That's what the laptop's for, So, if we could start with something here.
Yeah.
I kind of want to start before we get into specific characters. Some lessons we learned about character building in this book. I have 3 takeaways, maybe a 4th.
Okay.
One of them to start with, and if I miss any, feel free to include one. But one we both talked about before this podcast is names.
Names.
The names of characters is important.
Very important. Incredibly so. You need a good name, and a good name just kind of says something. you don't be too on nose of, you know, like if you make just the character's name of like Villain McVillanson, like it's like, okay, a little bit too much on the nose.
Yeah.
But like Woodrow Call is such a
It fits his personality.
name. Jake Spoon.
But why does it work? Why does it fit their personality? Like, where's your head go with it?
It's not even about the name. It's just the consonants. You know, it's the hardness of the name, how it flows off the tongue.
Yeah.
Makes you feel something. So what does Woodrow Call give you? Because to me, it's a lot of hard syllables of Woodrow Call. Like that Call name is like hard. Woodrow being like very formal and like it's a old established name, and it makes me think of like a straight-laced kind of guy for Augustus, and he goes by Gus. A little bit looser, like Gus is a little softer, a little round. I think round around the edges, and Gus he's got a little something on him. He's got a little layers. But how'd you take it? How do you think those names are so
definitely
well done?
the sound of them, the consonants, like you're saying, that Woodrow Call. And the first, I might be being too Pulitzer right now of thinking about what does he mean by naming Woodrow Call. But even when I didn't think of this while reading the book. I didn't think in my head, this is my interpretation of what the name means. But afterwards, I'm thinking about why those names work. First, the consonant. Second, Woodrow Call. Again, I'm being Pulitzer about this. And what I mean by that is like Oscar, pretentious, call it whatever. But with the name Call, is that symbolic for the fact that his personality and his reliability, like when you call on somebody, you pick up the phone and call, and does that speak to what the character is getting at about his reliability? Will he answer the call? I'm thinking about that and going, is that something of why it works? That subconsciously I'm thinking about that. I didn't think that when reading the book, but was I thinking, so Jake Spoon, was I subconsciously thinking that he's just there, he's a con man, just scooping up any opportunity.
He's scooping and taking from everyone.
That's what I get from a spoon, you know?
That's the image of, you ever try to wash a spoon? You turn on the faucet and just kind of splashes it in your face. Yeah. Or maybe it's had the reflection when you look at it of it's not a good reflection. It kind of makes you look silly. Like also just Jake is such a normal standard name. Like you're kind of average Joe. Like it's just a normal name.
Exactly.
A lot of these other characters get called Soupy and, Lip. But it's Jake. He gets the normal name. And so it kind of goes along with he's not really made fun of a lot, and yet his name is Spoon. That's a pretty funny last name.
Yeah.
So he's both taken seriously. He's also kind of a joke. Both in one.
That fits his personality perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just they all subconsciously work. Newt, the newbie, the new guy,
the small little lizard. Yeah.
Newt, yeah. Of course, it makes sense for Newt, and it just all of them work in a way. Some are more on the nose, of course. But they all make you think subconsciously about something about the character. And even if not, it just sounds good and works off the tongue really well.
Yeah.
But it's the names of characters.
Well, think about the difference of Lorena and Elmira. Like, Elmira just works as the villain name. Of course she's the worst one.
Of course. Elmira.
Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, I get sinister vibes from her.
Darth Vader.
Yeah, but Lorena. Like, I don't know. It's just a glorious name. I don't
called Laura sometimes.
Called Laura sometimes. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, the names is so good. It's so important.
So that would be the first thing. And I think and I'm also checking right now just to see. Strap in, folks. I'm telling you, this is
what are we at?
This is an analysis. Here we like an hour 15, but it's going by fast. People don't even know. So the second takeaway I got. This was the thing that was glaringly the biggest lesson I think I learned from the character building here. And when I finished the book, I went, I think that's genius. The unexpected reasoning of characters. Do you get what I mean by that? I can give examples.
Give an example.
So the unexpected reasonings of characters, and I have 2 examples in particular that will show exactly what I mean. I'll give the examples and you'll pick up on it easily. But here's the opening 2 paragraphs of the book, okay? When Augustus came out on the porch of the blue pig... sorry, let me redo that. When Augustus came out on the porch, the blue pigs were eating a rattlesnake, not a very big one. It had probably just been crawling around looking for shade when it ran into the pigs. Bless you. They were having a fine tug of war with it, and its rattling days were over. The sow had it by the neck, and the shoat had the tail. "You pigs get," Augustus said, kicking the shoat. "Head on down to the creek if you want to eat that snake." It was the porch he begrudged them, not the snake. Pigs on the porch just made things hotter, and things were already hot enough. He stepped down in the dusty yard and walked around to the spring house to get his jug. The sun was still high, yada, yada, yada. But him saying get, and it was the porch that begrudged them, not the snake. Pigs on the porch just made things hotter, and things were already hot enough. So the reason, you think he wants them to get for another reason. It's like, no, I want them to get because this. And then so that's one. And here's a second example. I don't have the passage, but you'll remember this. Bolivar ringing the bell.
Oh, yeah.
So Bolivar doesn't ring the bell for dinner. Bolivar likes the sound of the bell.
That's why he's there.
He's like, it sounds good.
I like hitting the bell. That's what I like doing.
That's what I like doing. And that seems stupid. These examples seem stupid, but this happens in other books. But the way it's done here with each character, and you give an unexpected reasoning for doing an action where you fill in your head as the reader and you go, okay, initially you're thinking when Augustus is kicking out those pigs, the logical thing is because you want the pigs to get, like, they're pigs. Or Bolivar's doing it because it's dinner time. And that's what you think. But then when the character has a little bit more to the reasoning and goes, it's not that. No, he likes the sound of the bell. And that happens with a bunch of characters. There's a bunch of examples. And for me, it just builds so much character. It builds so much more real because it's like, oh, you're not who I thought you were. There's more to you. I'm curious about you. Why do you do that? Why do you think like that?
It's the focus on characters can be consistent and not necessarily logical, which, Bolivar he likes it. He likes the sound of the bell. Is that like I need to think about logically, why would someone no, forget all that.
You're exactly right.
He likes it.
You're exactly right.
Some people just like things, and it's whatever. Who cares?
We have friends that don't make sense, but they're consistent.
Yeah.
In their nonsense. And that makes them real.
Yeah. And as long as how many of those characters just are a little off of think of I'm now forgetting the name
of who?
Is it Bolivar that goes back down to Mexico? Who goes?
Yes, the cook.
It's not just the bell thing for him. It's how he treats his family that's down south of going like. Yeah. It just seems so alien of how he's up in Texas because he wants to get away from his wife. And it's like, oh, is there some type of like rift between him and his wife? Mm-hmm. Is he cheating on her or something?
What's going on?
No, not at all. She's angry at him because he spends a lot of time out, and he's out because she's angry. She's raised pretty good daughters, and like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with his family. He likes them. They know about him.
In the end, he's still in Lonesome Dove because he went down and they were pretty angry at him.
And so he came back up.
So I don't know why it works.
I don't know either, but he's just, thing is, combine that with, why does he ring the bell? Because he just likes the sound of it. And he's
consistent. It's so consistent.
He's consistently.
You understand him.
He's consistently weird.
Yes.
Like something's wrong with his brain.
But the way ringing the bell also is a one-to-one rationalization for how he would treat his family.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it works. Great points.
He doesn't have 2-layer thoughts.
No.
He has single-layer thoughts.
It's so good.
He doesn't know how to rationalize anything.
How did he get a wife? I don't know.
No, and he has multiple daughters that apparently like him.
Yeah.
Like, he's not...
Oh, my God.
He has family problems, but apparently they're not awful.
No.
But he just, I'm going to leave. I'll be back in 6 months.
And then the cook that replaces him, is it Po Campo, I believe?
Po Campo.
And just kind of throws a wrench out there and goes, yeah, I killed my wife. And they're like, pause there, you killed your wife? Or people don't usually admit that they killed their wife. And he goes, no, I killed my wife. You're going to expand on that? No. And,
also,
then people are like,
I don't ride a horse. I walk.
Yeah. And then people are like, what? Well, he does cook some damn good food. Let's just not push it.
Talk about it.
I mean, he's got pretty good.
This is better than Gus's cooking. So, and he doesn't throw in ridiculous amounts of chilies and beans.
Yeah.
Again, the Bolivar thing of just how he refuses to cook anything other than beans.
Yes. just beans.
It's
a one-track mind. It's so simple.
Beans with ridiculous amounts of chili and just burns their mouth and just terrible gas. It's just awful. And yet no one else is willing to do it, so they keep him around.
So take that down the line. If you're writers out there, name the character well. Name the character well. Consonants, vowels. What does it sound like?
Not what the word means necessarily, but how does the shape of the name make you feel? Is it hard? Is it hard consonants? Is it soft? Is it flowy? Does it give you what vibes does it give you?
When people were naming in etymology, when people are just naming things, bubble sounds round.
Yeah.
Bubble sounds round. The letters are round, B's and O's. Triangle. That sounds like a triangle.
It has angles in the sound of the word.
It's of course there's 3 sides. It's a triangle. You know what? You properly name something.
Square.
Oh, that's a square.
Like, it's just...
That's a square.
Like, I'm just thinking even in format.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
It's not too long, not too short. It's just...
What's a word that doesn't fit, that is named improperly? Because you have a lot of those.
Probably a German word.
Well, what's an English word that has something named improperly that you can think of? When I think book, book's a book.
Book looks like a book.
That's a book.
Like, it's a book. Book, yeah.
Laptop, perfect. Perfect. So many good words out there.
Bed.
Bed makes sense. I was going to think of another great one.
It's too short for how amazing it is.
Can I just give one more? Ooze. Ooze sounds like ooze.
Ooze is good.
It looks like ooze. Word. But you don't think bed works?
We need something grander for bed. The bed is amazing. It's too short.
I like that.
I want a longer version of bed. Bedford? Put that on the sign. It's longer.
Bedford actually sounds sick. I'm going to Bedford.
I just got my, I just upgraded. I had a bed. I now have a Bedford.
You are now transcending. You see the meme of Bedford. Oh, okay. That's genius. So writing characters. Find a name works. Maybe there's some subliminal, some subconscious thing you're putting in there with the spoon, the call, etc. And secondly, do you agree with that? That unexpected reasoning that hooks you, gets you mysterious, makes you think different about the character, like who are they, and then you stay consistent to that quirk.
Yeah, no,
it really works.
Well, especially it's always good for a joke. It's very humorous.
Yes.
But it also makes them just stand out. It's really interesting. This book does a great job at showing you characters that you initially go, I have no idea how they see the world. Mm-hmm. Like, their view of the world is alien to me, the reader.
Yep.
And it's fun to that, like, as the book goes on, you start getting, oh, okay, I think I can see the world how, Gus sees it, how Call sees it. Where, great example of a Call, talk about where, for most of the book, I liked Call for a lot of the book, but then just kind of going like, why is he one of the main characters, And then just the turnaround at the very end of just throws him into, that's one of the things that floors me of going like, yeah, Gus is of course the main character. Totally understand why he's here. Call? Why is he here? And then the ending blew me away, which is impressive to do. But
very
other character writing that's very important. I think Larry McMurtry does a great job of not just showing you who the characters are, but he does tell you. Like, we talked about this a bit before, of a lot of writers and a lot of storytellers will talk a lot about how show don't tell.
We talked about this on our
No.
panel at Dragonsteel Nexus.
Sometimes you need to tell. Sometimes telling is even better than showing in some instances. But you need often, I won't say absolute, but you often need to have both. We talked before about the sign scene. That's a tell. He's telling us. He's telling us a random story about creating a sign.
Well, also
and
there's
it's hilarious.
But there's so much show there. It's how the characters are.
It's tell, but also show.
I'd say it's more show in that scene, but yes.
But you get what I mean? Of just
100%.
Tell, hey, what's the mystery of this character? And we just start going into a flashback, like they're telling us the story of what happened to him. And so take a smaller scene of Poe Campo. We're literally told. They're just like, oh, yeah, kill his wife. Do we get context? Do we get explanation? Do we get to be shown that? No. It's all about the reaction afterwards. So we're told something, but then suddenly, and then shown what are the reactions of people around it. So that's a really fun way of drop information, just narrate, tell it, and then show how the characters react to that knowledge. Is really fun. That's a showy. It's a combination of both.
Definitely.
And this book does that brilliantly.
Yes. I'd say the sign scene is one of the best examples of show. That's why I wouldn't say the sign scene, but the other stuff makes sense because a lot of, I think a lot of the...
It is hidden as a tell. Because it starts off going like, oh, I'm going to tell you about this sign that I created. It's going, okay. Because its structure is like just this little side.
Hat Creek Company sign to do.
I don't know. It seems like just an aside. Like a narrator is giving you some lore. And then we get a show. Yeah. Like, oh, we get to actually show how each of these characters react to it.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times you tell novels because you just don't want to focus on it so much. Because if you explain every room, every sidewalk, then, okay, the reader's going to pick up and go like, okay, that's important then. You're spending a lot of time showing me this. Whereas you should tell to get readers to the next portion. But the important part you're talking about is when you give a tell, how do you make it, if you want a reader to focus on it, actions and reactions to that tell, but also, is it a funny line? You can get away with it. I guess it in the writing itself, or is it both pushing forward the plot and the world, and it's funny, so you're getting an emotional kick out of it, developing the character. So the more you can move all those other things and tell, you can get away with anything.
Well, we'll get into that with prose and dialogue, but
we'll hold off. Yeah.
Master of the Terry Pratchett, the thing that I learned from Terry Pratchett of what I want from writing. And what Larry McMurtry does is, every joke tells you more about the character.
Yes.
Every single joke. Like, no joke is in there just to be funny.
And I was kind of bringing that perfect segue because I was bringing that back to these characters and why the consistency is important. And you're saying every joke tells you more about the character. Sorry to use this as an example. It's kind of rehashed all the time, but MCU and some MCU movies, hey, I'm not a hater of the whole thing. I think the new ones are bad, but it's declined. However, though a lot of the MCU humor that doesn't work, sure, it can work on a blockbuster level, laugh, and kids can have fun, even adults can have fun, of course, but a lot of times the humor doesn't work is because it's a joke for the sake of the character. You know this, so this is more for people. It's a joke for the sake of the character where makes a funny joke, even if it's funny, but then going, well, why would Iron Man say that? Or why would XYZ say that? And they're all saying the joke. They're all the jokesters. And so it takes away from everybody's
joke at
expense.
At the expense of a character's consistency.
And then it throws you off. Sure, it could be funny, but then you lose something else with that. And then
you tell a joke at the wrong time to undercut a serious moment.
Exactly.
Where this doesn't. The jokes are there, but when it's time to have a serious moment, like the book lets you sit with it.
Yeah.
Which is important. But we're talking about characters.
Yeah.
We just talked about like just the character building and what he does with it. Do you want to go down the list?
I do. I have one more though lesson from this character masterclass. Last lesson, I'll keep it brief because we talked about it a bit, but Lorena and how every guy views Lorena. So
Yeah.
all the way through, great character building just to have people with different perspectives of a character in the book, and that develops the character themselves to know how each of them have their internal conflict with another character, and that itself shows you a lot about the person themselves.
Oh yeah,
But-
just seeing a different POV of a character that you also get to have a POV. Like,
Yes.
It's just you get to explore who they really are with their own thoughts, but then you get to see how other people see them.
Yes.
And that's maybe not equally important, but close to. It's important to see how others see them as well, especially with a very, very isolated and reserved character like Lorena.
Yeah.
And how much she can put on an act of how everyone else sees her in a completely different way than she knows to be herself. And the only person to get the little inkling out of her, even in the beginning, was Gus. Gus actually wanted to talk to her occasionally. Of course, he bought her time just like every other guy there, but there were sometimes he purchased time just to talk to her, just to understand her, just like a... And that part of that is just, he has money to throw around, and he's just kind of like,
Yeah.
It's that big dick energy of like, I got the most money here, like, sure, why not? Let's chat. Right now, that's more fun for me right now. Why not?
Do you want to start with Augustus McCrae?
Sure.
Okay.
Augustus McCrae. What a great name. Fantastic name. But
We talked about him a bit.
we already did.
Now,
But what was your impression of him when you were reading the book, like from the beginning?
the
'cause-
very beginning,
Because I had some thoughts on him of, I had the question of going, why is he here?
oh, why is he here? Not his personality. So what's your question?
Oh, just surface level of like, what was your emotions kind of like, and feelings and thoughts toward the character as you were going through it?
The first thing I latched onto with this character was how he liked to argue for argument's sake. And that created a fun dynamic with the other characters. But why he does that also ties perfectly to the fact that his personality is simple pleasures in life. Like, what? Just why not argue? That's the fun of life. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why sit around like Call? He's the opposite of Call in that way of he antagonizes, but he has fun with it. So I thought the purpose of his character was to kind of bring out and draw out some conflict with others, or like to push people's buttons a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So early on, that's where I thought it was setting up. What about you?
I remember just thinking to myself of, why is he in this cattle company? Why do people put up with him?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. How lazy he is and how much of an ass he really can be. Very funny, but you start looking at the workers like Call, and you go, why is he here? Why does anyone put up with him? Like, he takes a lot of money and does not do a lot for them. And then you see, even during the raid, you like, okay, yeah, he can handle a gun pretty well. To me, it was that moment of him in a fight with Blue Duck's like henchmen or Blue Duck's compatriots, and him jumping off of his own horse while slitting his horse's throat to let out the blood to basically startle the horses behind him. Then using his own dead horse as cover, is able to shoot down the Indians off their horse. And it's going like, oh, I see why he's here. I understand why they keep him in the group. That was the moment of like going, holy shit. That was wild. But also just going like, okay, clearly there are stories that I'm missing of like, that's what everyone knows. Everyone knows that about Call. That's why they keep him around. Like, you don't need him 95% of the time, but that 5%, it's good to have Gus on your side. And so that was a fun, surprising moment for me. And I liked having that for several different characters. Like, also kind of happened with Call. me as a reader
Oh,
going,
yeah, that scene.
me as a reader going like, why is this character here?
Yeah.
I'm going like, hey, he's kind of funny.
These old
kind of
Texas Rangers.
interesting. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, but like, why is this my main character? And then getting that moment later on and going like, oh, I was missing some things. Like, clearly this character's important, and I see why everyone treats him this way. Is such a fun way to write a character.
After bashing that army guy's head in, here's what it says. Cole saw that everyone was looking at him, the hands and the cowboys and townspeople alike. The anger had drained out of him, leaving him feeling tired. He didn't remember the fight particularly, but people were looking at him as if they were stunned. He felt he should make some explanation, though it seemed to him a simple situation. I hate a man that talks rude. I won't tolerate it. You freaking psycho! What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean he talks rude? I hate a man that talks rude. I won't tolerate it. What do you mean, Cole?
How terrified must everyone else in the cattle company must be? I'm like, what do you mean? That's all it took? He talked rude and you bashed his skull in?
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, no, he's fucking insane. He's an actual psychopath.
Yeah.
But
what scene for you, another one with Cole that stood out?
I mean, everything after Gus's death was just rough.
Yeah.
Everything between him and Maggie, of how fundamentally awkward he is. Like, he cannot operate in social settings of any kind.
Yeah.
He doesn't get it. And can you imagine of the level of he went to a whorehouse once. Like, and again, put it in this context of the West and all this stuff. Like, he goes to a whorehouse once, fathers a child, denies the child, she dies, and from then on, it's just for years and years. Like, he's just, I tried to interact with women once, and that just emotionally broke me. So never again. Just we're gonna stop that.
No more hurt for me.
I felt something for someone for like a whole 5 seconds, and we're gonna have no more of that.
Yeah.
My God.
He puts up his walls. He wants to protect himself from being hurt to the extreme.
It's almost unbelievable levels, but it works. They're just extreme characters.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, they're believable.
Because they stay true to their character.
Mm-hmm.
Same way he doesn't want to face his past. That's why the entire conflict with Newt exists.
It's why you don't get a satisfying ending. Yeah. He's consistent. Like, what of that whole story would make you think that he would turn over a new leaf and actually speak to Newt? The only thing that could make him do that was if that was Gus's last wish.
Yeah.
Gus could have told him, like, my dying wish as your friend is that you accept Newt as your son. I think that would be the only thing, because then it's all right. Dying wish gave me purpose, and then he would treat it that way. But I think that's he wouldn't be able to do it for his own sake.
No.
Which
very sad.
Very sad.
Very tragic.
And so Gus likes to throw one last little, like, fuck you. Go all the way back to Lonesome Dove. That's my dying wish.
Yeah.
It's like, asshole.
It's such a Gus thing to do.
It's a dick move. But also, he knows his friend. Like, he knows that his death is going to be hard on him. And he knows that Cole needs a mission, a purpose. And the longer a mission he can give him, the better.
I didn't think about that way.
To be able to process it.
That's so nice of Gus.
Yeah. He gives him a very long, hard purpose to then process and deal with the death. And also gives him another gift of he gets to do it alone. He doesn't have to deal with anyone else. So
that's a great gift. That's awesome.
What? They know each other.
That's perfect. Oh, that's so perfect. Flawed
yeah.
till the end, but brothers till the end.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
no, Gus, I think it'd be a shame to not talk about Gus especially about the ending. How did you take his ending of, one, the amount that he overcomes and being able to like fight off all these, the Indian groups, he fights off the bear, and just all this stuff, somehow survives, but basically his leg gets gangrene and he has to get it amputated or else he'll die. And he chooses death because he doesn't want to be the guy with only one leg.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be able to be Gus McCraw anymore. He wouldn't be able to be the gunslinger extraordinaire. How'd you take that?
I took that as him being stubborn. I took that, and he was going to go out his own way. I guess you could call it stubbornness in the worst sense of the word, but I also use it kind of fondly for his character. So it's either stubborn or sticking to who he is. I'm Gus McCrae. So he makes that decision in the end, and I think we might have talked about this briefly in Thought Provoking, but him and McCrae both being stubborn in the end, not compensating, not doing the thing they should do to actually overcome, figure out what their need is to actually have that character growth. Or again, his character growth at Gus McCrae, I think, is less flawed than Call is, much less flawed, but his reasoning for still sticking to that cowboy ethos in a way, him still sticking to that, he might not have been the aromantic shutdown like Call was, but he had his own problems. One of those being he idealized himself. He thought he was smarter. He liked to argue. He liked to push buttons because he thought highly of himself.
Yeah.
And his leg's a part of himself, but literally he just wouldn't be the same person because he goes, he has this arrogance, and he couldn't go out seeing himself like that. So it was him still sticking to that idea of he was the Texas Ranger. He is the man.
But also think about it. It's another what if in a tragedy type thing of why does he not stay with Clara? Clara.
Yeah.
Why is he not with her? Ultimately, what does she need? She needs someone that'll stick around and not, leave on him. She doesn't need a super strong man that's not particularly, she doesn't need a gunslinger. Maybe she needs someone to protect her. It's a dangerous place, but so far she's done all right.
Yeah.
She needs someone to stick around and help raise her kids and like good conversation and just be a partner.
I totally get that.
Ultimately, the world kind of puts him in a right situation of, hey, he lost his leg. He can no longer be that gunslinger anymore. Yep. He's got to, if he decides to live, he has to settle down. If he goes to Clara, that's actually that could be a good ending for him of, look, he has been forced to put down the gun. Yeah. He's been forced to put up his cowboy ways and settle down with someone to help him, but also he can help her. And he can finally be the person that she needed him to be, and she would finally give him what he's wanted. He's given that opportunity, and he still decides to say no. And I had a conversation with the book club, and do want to mention it, of the perspective of how and it's a very controversial kind of take of like, imagine you being disabled and reading the story, and Gus would rather like kill himself than be physically disabled. And what that message is like, that is, especially in today's day and age, like, one, we have different technology, like being disabled in in the what era is this?
21st century. What
21st. No, in being disabled in the West.
Oh,
very different.
I thought you were saying like what year, what millennium, what century? Yeah.
No, but being disabled in the West is a very different thing than being disabled today. But something still, like, how much is your life worth? And is a disabled life worth living? Gus took the answer of no. and how much of a, I would say, controversial take that is. But I would imagine how many other people have considered it. Like, that's not a completely foreign idea of people faced with the option of living their, like, having to live the rest of their life in a severely or even minorly disabled state. I imagine similar thoughts go through their heads.
A positive take on the disability, or just the message, and more optimistic, was Dawnchard that we were Brandon Center. We just talked about Dawnchard, where this is the opposite in a way of the decision that's made. And what's your takeaway on that? Just it's an interesting look.
It's an interesting look. More specifically, the book straddles that line of, you can definitely take it as Gus making the wrong choice and being very stubborn. At least that's how I took it. It's his character flaw that he has been given the opportunity to settle down with Clara, or maybe even Lorena. Like, he now has a good excuse to put down his pride. Like, his pride doesn't have to be wounded. Like, the world has been forced, but he can have all his good stories, but time to set aside that life. And he still can't give it up. So I took it in Gus is wrong to do it way. But the way it's written is really honorable. It's tragic, but also somewhat heroically. You get to have the message of, like, he went out on his own terms, and you can kind of romanticize it as well. How did you take it? The romanticized route, or the hey, this is exemplifies Gus's flaws?
I took it as the exemplifies his flaws.
Okay.
That stubbornness part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely took it that way. Because I think all the themes went back to not romanticizing the West.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the point of most, if not all,
yeah.
of the characters. And so, yeah, that's even Gus's end and Call's end. We've talked a bunch about them. Did you want to, while we're on Gus and Call, anything else? Your opportunity.
There's probably more to talk about, but
always.
We talked also before of how he treats Lorena. We see how.
We'll talk Lorena?
I would love to talk to Lorena.
Well, Lorena
would. My most invested character. I think she was the person I was most invested in.
Your favorite or invested?
Invested.
Favorite's Gus?
Because how can your favorite not be Gus a little bit, you know?
Okay.
I get it, but
close second is Boulevard dinging that bell. But yes. Lorena. Who is she?
Oh, that's the question she's trying to answer herself.
Yeah.
But a young girl that's been taken advantage of all her life, who at some point along the way takes back some modicum of control of, like, she accepts the world as it is, she accepts her place, and then finds a way to make it still hers. Of, yes, she's still, she's a working gal, as they put it in the book, but she's lost a lot of the connection. She knows how to manipulate men to get what she wants. She plays up her advantages in this world, and so she kind of takes charge of her life in the small way she can, even if it's not ideal. And then, she keeps falling into the trap of trusting men that really shouldn't be trusted.
Jake Spoon, yeah.
Jake Spoon. And then finally, sort of trusts Gus in the end, who also not probably the best, also not the best person to trust, because ultimately he does leave her. He isn't going to protect her forever. But yeah, how else did you take? What did you think about her character?
She was, but who is she is what she's asking herself. She had a couple of big moments that made me really think about her character. So first off, when she's leaving with Jake Spoon, and you see, was it Xavier that offered her so much money? I think it was Xavier that offered her that money. She even denied that. And so showing that she does this job, she is a whore because, can we say that on YouTube? Probably.
I don't know.
Well, we're not big enough, so
Yeah, they'll probably be fine.
it'll be fine. But how do they put it in the book? What's her
She's a working woman.
working woman? So
Yeah.
she does that. So for a pure reason to get by. I mean,
Yeah, no, she
clear
does
that
it
there's
because
no.
she doesn't have any other skill. She's not trained. Like, she has nothing else to offer anyone but her body at that point.
Yeah, and it's complete. There's anytime she does have sex, it's completely not emotional. She doesn't like it. She hates it. She's waiting to leave,
Yeah.
and so she's in that position where Cull has no purpose. Her purpose, she just wants to leave at any means necessary, and so she was the perfect person for Jake Spoon to be able to con because of her, how much of a vulnerable position she was in, and you get this mix of great sympathy for her and the sad frustration of there's sad frustrating moments, but then the extreme sympathy moments of, is there anything she could do? Probably not. She's doing the best of what does she always make the right decision? No. But does she know that? No. And so again, she is symptomatic of the tragedy the whole book is. So she also has that tragic journey. In her tragedy at the end, she finally finds somebody that's not a con man. Gus, she really does love. Her tragedy is that, well, he loves Clara. I mean, the one thing she could do her whole life was swoon men. Even Gus would always come to her, but even by the end, that's not enough to keep the guy that she thinks she wants.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, she does get to find some happiness at the end of like the found family with Clara and her kids.
That's
and how
true.
much she connects with them is special.
Her message in the end is guys suck.
Yeah, basically.
Give me the first woman she sees. She's like, yes, Clara.
Please.
Yeah. That's also so cool how, the best part about Lorena's character is this whole time, this jealousy she's building up for Clara and against Clara because Gus loves Clara over her. And she just can't help but like Clara when she meets her because Clara's amazing. Clara's so great. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Gone with the Wind, a couple characters in there. I forget the character's name, but just one of the characters, just this fantastic wife who you can't hate, but the character wants to, but you just can't. So Clara, you can't hate her. And so Lorena is kind of having to face, damn it. I've been saying this a lot lately, but another Timothée Chalamet moment. Another Timmy moment where I want to hate that man. He was on a podcast with Theo Vaughn. He came across so likable. It was so frustrating. Damn. I stopped watching. I was like, Tim.
I don't want to like him too much.
No, he was just such a cool vibe. I was like, this bastard. So, same thing that Lorena was feeling toward Clara. So that was great to see. Obviously, the tragedy with Blue Duck. And so she gets all sorts of things thrown her way. And such a fascinating character to watch other characters react to. It's awesome.
Her being on the outside of the whole cattle raid, basically following, but always in a tent outside. And also Jake Spoon just like following, but not part of the cattle train. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But also, it was such a Jake Spoon to do. Such a Jake
Talk
Spoon
to me about
thing.
Jake.
Like, oh, God. What a rapscallion turned actual, like, villain, kind of. Like, you really want to hate him. At a certain point, like, at first, it's just, you think, at the very beginning between Lorena and Jake Spoon, you kind of think they're using each other. You know, like, Lorena's like going, yeah, no, I'll stay with Jake Spoon. He's going to get me to San Francisco. Like, that's awesome. Hey, I'll use sex to just get me to San Francisco.
Right.
Please. We're good.
Well, at the same time, she did really fall for him, too, because she was going, is he going to find some other guy in San Francisco that's prettier than me? Yeah. So she was still going, like, she believed him.
Yeah. And then Jake Spoon just further and further of, he can't even do it's one thing to, like, he just drops lower and lower of, okay, maybe he's swindling her. Maybe he won't take her all the way to San Francisco. But maybe he cares about her a bit. And then it's like, okay, he is seeing other women while he's while she's not seeing other men. Like, okay,
Right.
fine. And you just keep going lower and lower. It's like, well, hey, at least he's not abusing her. And then, okay, maybe he's abusing her a bit, but maybe he'll actually protect her when she gets captured.
Right.
And, like,
Come try to save her.
no, nothing. Doesn't even
The
try.
bar keeps
Like,
getting...
The bar gets lower and lower,
Yeah.
and Jake must be Jamaican. Like, he is playing
What?
mambo. He's mambo
I
underneath.
have no idea where you're going with that.
Like, what are they? What's it called?
I have no idea. I don't think it's Jamaican.
Oh, I don't know. Something.
I thought you were just going like a racist rant of like, these damn Jamaicans.
These damn Jamaicans. Don't you know they just will always disappoint you?
You had like a really bad experience once. Just kind of extrapolated.
They'll abandon you for their steel drums. That's what I'm saying. Every one of them. They care about them more than people.
So this con man, Jake, I think the two features of him that we are told about him that makes sense for why he does this to Lorena, makes sense for his whole character. First, he accidentally killed one of the Comanches.
Yeah,
right?
like from a hip draw. Like he just
accidentally did. Everyone thinks like, damn, what a shot. But he's already a con man by reputation. His entire reputation is that he's this gunslinger and part with Colin. That was even fake. And he's on the run. Ooh, he's this vigilante on the run. Well, he accidentally shot a dentist through a wall hit the dentist.
In mostly self-defense. Like he was defending himself from like someone drew on him and then he shot and accidentally killed a dentist. Yep. And that's why he's on the run.
There you go. So he's just got a con and a sad reason for being, and he's the reason they're going to Montana in the first place. He's like, yeah, I heard there's some up there in Montana.
Yeah, there's some good land up there.
Check it out. Check it out.
You guys should be the first one.
And of course, Call would be the one to go, oh, a purpose? Yeah, great. And
awesome, yeah. And then immediately abandons them of like, yeah, I may have suggested going to Montana. I ain't doing all that work, but I'll follow. I'll follow along. Get the protection that you guys offer, but I won't do any of the work.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to like be in a tent, being in a tent with Lorena the entire way out to Montana.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. And that's Jake Spoon.
He's such a wonderful character to hate. I love to hate him by the end of that story. And then McMurtry just pulls it all together of like, I'm hating him, I'm loving to hate him, like, oh man, what this Jake Spoon.
Give you that Giselle vibes.
Yeah. And then his hanging is such a poignant death. Like I wasn't cheering for his death at that point. I didn't hate him. Like I had such a complicated emotion toward him by it.
You wanted a redemption.
I wanted a little something. And I felt it for Newt's sake, but also just his response to it was a little bit more honorable of understanding the mistakes he made and that there's no going back from it.
Ooh.
Oh.
Interesting.
What a fascinatingly wonderful character to both hate and then sympathize by the end, or, not hate by the end, I guess.
Yes. Don't like him.
I don't like him.
But he had the potential to be someone you could love eventually. He had the potential to redeem himself. You saw a glimpse of something in there that made you go, man.
Well, especially how he treats Newt. For the most part, he treats Newt okay, but kind of ignores him. At the very end, does something nice for Newt. And hands him off and goes off with a little bit of grace, a little bit of, manly pride. Doesn't go out just whimpering.
Yeah.
Accepting his mistakes. Oh, what a good character.
What do you think about July Johnson?
The saddest sack in the West.
Saddest sack.
Oh my God. He was so frustrating.
Also, the alliteration in July Johnson makes him sound
Yeah. Well, no, you think he's gonna. How much of that is on purpose to make him seem like this is what the hero should be? July Johnson,
yeah.
the hero
Bruce
sheriff.
Banner, Peter Parker, and July Johnson.
He's that sheriff. He's the hero sheriff that John Wayne would play. And then what we actually get is this just indecisive, sad, dense motherfucker that can't understand that his wife abandoned him. He doesn't get it. Can't understand it.
A wife, Elmira, who sends her son Joe with him because she doesn't want the responsibility, wants to go find that guy who's in jail, she finds out later.
Which, D-Boot. Another great name.
D-Boot.
D-Boot.
Like, who comes up with this?
Who comes up with these names?
But July Johnson.
Larry does.
Yeah, that's true. And so July Johnson and his whole quest, because Peach was her name, was telling him to go out there and...
he is supposed to find the murderer, Jake Spoon.
Yeah. The saddest sack of potatoes is going to go find the saddest of con men.
Yeah. Just... Oh, God. Thing is, his deputy had more...
Roscoe.
What a fun...
Roscoe.
What a fun, pathetic character. He's also equally pathetic, but... I don't know. He had the decency to, be scared and, not want to do things. July is just so indecisive. He's can't do anything. He just has to be told what to do. He can never make a decision for himself. Ever. He didn't even decide really to get married. Elmira basically said, we're getting married. He's like, okay.
Oh, we're married now.
We're married now. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
Hey, go get Jake Spoon. Oh, okay. Oh, go find your wife. Oh, okay. He just says...
He had gangrene or something for 6 weeks, or so he didn't do it for a while.
Yeah.
And then did, so that's...
How much is that? But, yeah, no, he's pathetic.
Yeah.
And how he freezes up. It was so interesting to see him meet up with Gus of, he's there to find, hey, I'm going to get back to these Indians. I'm going to get my friends back. It's my time to shine. And then you see a real lawman, or not even a lawman. Yeah, Gus was a Texas Ranger, so the real lawman, hero type, kind of show him up, and July just did nothing. And then Roscoe and Joe and small girl. That was incredibly fascinating. What was her name?
I'm looking at my list now.
Very minor character, but
yes, I don't have her character name on there. But yes, the little girl.
I think it is Janny.
Oh,
tragic. But then they all die, and now July is left with nothing. He's like, well, I'm going to go find Elmira. And then that ends with nothing. It's he finds her, and she just immediately runs away. And he's just he finally settles down with Clara, who also pathetic the entire time. He's just pathetic the entire time.
He is.
Does he have any redeemable qualities?
He is not an evil person. He's just a clueless person and a sad person.
Well, he's the example of good and evil. To be good, you have to have the capacity for evil. So is it right to say that he treats others well? No, he just doesn't have the capacity to treat anyone negatively or positively. He's a coward. So him treating Clara well, in the sense of he's not abusing her, he's just he does what she asks for. He's a coward. And so a coward can't be nice. To be nice, you have to be capable of being bad. And he's not capable of it.
It's the moral framework of an animal.
Yeah.
You don't look at a farm animal and go, that's evil or good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it exists. If you can't be virtuous at all, you go around. You go in the herd.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you are.
Yeah, he has nothing.
Yeah.
For him, which
Not a thing.
not a thing, which is fascinating on its own.
Yep.
Of a character with no positive qualities at all, like the ultimate indecisive, dense coward.
That's the character you're most like. I was trying to find it.
Ah, there you go.
We
You
came
found
around.
him.
Yes, right after that line you said too. Perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect.
Oh, God. Yeah, I can think of no worse insult. I'd rather be Blue Duck than July Johnson.
Really.
At least Blue Duck is capable of something.
Of evil, which makes you capable
He's
of
a
good.
person.
He's a person.
July Johnson is a farm animal. He's nothing. He's barely human.
Well, you know who stuck out to me in Roscoe's journey? That one woman he ran into on that farm. Do you remember her?
Oh, yeah.
I forget her
so
name.
So weird, but also
the way
just
she
great.
viewed marriage and like, just, hey, it's convenient. Let's do this.
I got a farm. I need some help.
Again, emphasizing just how relationships are viewed in this entire world.
Very transactional.
Extremely.
Oh, everything is transactional.
Yes.
To the
you provide this, I give this. It's bartering.
But how much she just like lays it on the table of like, hey, here's what I'll do. Here's what you can provide. And like, I'll give you a free trial. Let's see how this works out and see what you think. No? Well, it was good having you here.
It feels like signing the Apple's terms of service. It's like, I just
look at these things I can cook. I can cook biscuits. Like, we're good. Like, look at that. Cook, clean, farmhand, also sex. Full package.
Does that sound good?
Sound good? Roscoe, I still got to find this Jake Spoon fella. It's like, you're lost, buddy.
And you know what I'm just realizing, Rich? We've been recording so long that the whole quip about what character you are, that was the last video we recorded. I think that was with Dawnchard. It's not going to make sense to people listening right now because we've been recording for like 3-4 hours.
I called you like the
you did. And I was like, I'm going to call you one later. So that doesn't make sense to people watching. Forget that. Because they're going to be like, wait, what are you talking about?
What are we at? What are we at hour-wise?
Oh, 2 hours, 8 minutes?
Oh,
we're still on characters.
This may be one of our longest videos yet.
Oh, yeah. It's your favorite book. We got to dive into your favorite book.
I'm so happy. Demon in White's going to be also real long.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about Newt?
Oh, yeah. Newt, one of the more fascinating characters that we get to have here again, talked about it several times now, of Newt is the character that experiences all the different types of loss. Loss, like he begins with the loss of his mother, the lack of a father figure. He gets to lose the first one he goes through is the loss of not the death, but the loss of, is it Roscoe? Not Roscoe.
Not Roscoe,
no. The cook in the beginning.
Bolivar?
Loses Bolivar, of like this person he's known his entire life, and then just decides to go. And he starts to realize like, oh, he just left. I'm never going to see him again.
Quick aside to Bolivar, by the way. That was just such a touching moment such a sad moment. Bolivar saying he's going to leaves, and then we see his inner thoughts of how he kind of wanted Call to stop him. He wanted somebody to stop him, but nobody did. So he's like, okay, I guess I will go. But there was a thought he had of just going, nobody asked me to stay, which was sad. And which goes back to Call, and the whole point is that, again, reiterating ourselves, but even Call didn't want to open up the emotion and be like, hey, I do want you to stay. And because he doesn't do that, Bolivar does leave. Doesn't stay in the band. If he would have just said something, just acknowledged his feelings, that wouldn't have happened. But no feelings. No feelings here.
But yeah, we get Newt's many deaths after that, dealing with the death of his first, like, kind of... He lives with a lot of people much older than him, but he finally gets the Irish boy that... It's a friend his own age gets to grow close with, and then dies. Yeah. Dies basically in his arms. He gets to see the kind of gruesome death. And then he gets loss of several other friends. He gets to experience the death of his hero, Jake Spoon. death of his innocence in the whorehouse, and then a pseudo loss, and he finally thinks he has a father figure in Call, and he still loses that at the end, and like he still is let down by that. And I'm even missing parts. Like he goes through so many lost love with Lorena,
Mm-hmm.
of like how innocent and naive he is, and he, that falls away, and lost that to kind of Gus. Oh, oh my God.
Yeah.
He goes through so much
He does.
in the story, but then grows by the end of it of being a very competent cowhand. Of he actually starts to lead the troop. Call actually trusts him. And how much of this is Call trying to be more of a father figure, and how much that I don't, Gus has been shown to, he's kind of a no nonsense guy. Like I don't think he would give Newt that his role and position if Newt didn't earn it. Newt actually is very competent and well thought out, good planner, that Call does acknowledge him. So, yeah, no, it's your classic, not hero's journey. My God, it's been so long. It's a long day. I'm trying to think of a very basic thing of it. What is the story? When you grow up, it's
Coming of age.
the coming of age story. God, and I don't have my watch on me. What does this say?
I could 11.
Ah,
We're good. It's a Friday though. We're good.
okay.
Get that energy. This is your favorite book.
I know. It's been a long week.
Well,
but no,
we have here. So if you want me to go, you want to finish
ahead.
on Newt?
Well, no, that's basically, we get our classic, coming of age story with this one, and I think it's so incredibly well done. This is the character that I had the most reflection on, of how this character dealt with death, loss, and growing up ultimately in such a harsh environment, but coming out of it with still a relatively positive outlook on life. He never became jaded through all the mishaps that he's gone through, which is pretty good.
And then you have, so we've talked about Elmira, how much she sucks. We have,
to give context, Elmira is a working woman that fell in love with another swindler named D. Boot. Great name again. Fathers a child with D. Boot, who then swiftly abandons her. So she's taking care of Joe, her son, and decides, you know what? I'm just going to marry some sucker to take care of him. I'm going to settle down. So she settles down convinces July Johnson, this sheriff, to marry her, and marries him, and then realizes, I hate it. He's so boring. I hate it all. I hate my son. I'm going to abandon them all. And so she sends her son off with July Johnson and runs out and abandons everyone to go find D. Boot again. And just terrible. And along the way, just the amount of venom in her and how she treats everyone around her is just toxic.
She will do anything she can for her own whims. Very selfish person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, of the three, her versus Clara versus Lorena, easy to pick sides. Very clear. And with the guys too, with July, bless you, like July Johnson that you hate so much.
Yeah.
And Jake Spoon, who you're more like, oh, I hate you, but there was something there. I guess other characters, I can go through some other names. And which ones stick out to you? They all stick out. That's the problem. Every single one. We have Dietz.
Oh.
Po Campo. Dishwater Boget.
Dishwater Boget.
Louisa was one of the characters. Xavier. Lippy Jones.
No, Soupy Jones.
Oh.
Is it Soupy Jones?
I thought it was Lippy Jones. Do I have it wrong? You might be right. Let's see. Fact check. It's Lippy Jones.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
But yeah, Lippy Jones, of all those characters, who do you want to point out, talk about? They all have distinct personalities. Do you have any?
Oh, God. I want to get the character who has a hole in their gut.
Okay.
I believe that's Lip, right?
Is that Lippy?
I think that's Lippy.
Okay.
Because he has the underbite, plays the piano.
Yeah.
And has a hole in his gut that leaks. Who's also obsessed with Lorena.
Yeah.
That character is just, there's nothing particularly stand out that I don't think will put him against other characters, but he definitely feels more realized of this kind of tragic character of, he's kind of always second fiddle to Jake Spoon. Of he is a very competent cowhand. He's a good shot. He's more competent and more responsible than Jake. But because he looks funny, because he's named Lippy Jones, with a hole in his gut that leaks,
Poor Lippy.
there's no chance. His chances with women are just shot. His chance with respect among the fellow cowhands is basically non-existent. No matter how good he is, no matter how competent, no one will respect him, and that's what he has to constantly fight for. Think about it. It's pretty impressive how talented he is. He's also a musician. He can actually play piano pretty well. He plays other instruments as well, and he's a cowboy, and he's a competent one at that. He's a good shot. He takes charge of the different the cattle drives. And then immediately, basically at the end, Newt's put in charge. It's like going, I don't know. I kind of feel for the guy. He looks funny, and so people just don't respect him. He's also a bit of a, obsessive guy with Lorena.
Yeah, he as many are.
Yeah.
It's so strange that all of these characters feel full and real people, even though they're not your Gus or Call, who are the main characters of the book.
Yeah.
That's insane. How all of them have distinct personalities. You can even... So Dietz. Want to talk on Dietz briefly? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dietz our only black guy in the whole crew, I believe. So, and how the others treat race was also interesting. It's one of those things.
Talk that in World, too. Yeah.
But how the characters treat him they're racist, but also it's the Wild West in the sense of it's a hard world. If someone's helpful and useful to you, if they're on your team and they've saved your life, that kind of dispels any real prejudice.
Also, the fact that Dietz is basically Superman.
Yeah. He's base. Yeah,
he gets to see farther. It's he handles everything.
The best tracker, period. God level.
Yeah.
And he's also incredibly kind. But also, he's a little bit like Call in that he's really internal, where there was that woman that he's constantly trying to think about. Everyone else has these deep thoughts, and he's trying to think. And he has trouble thinking through things. And he takes his time with it. And there was that girl back in Lonesome that he's still thinking about this whole time, where he had the opportunity to not go on the whole cattle drive and stay with her, that she wanted to be with him.
Yeah.
And yet he's still thinking about it, going wow, poor guy.
The one that could have been.
Yeah.
What could have been?
I mean, that's the whole thing. But
yeah.
But no, Dietz was a sad death, I think. But you also see the different characters of Newt. Newt had basically no racist tendencies at all in him because he grew up with Dietz. That's just, black people are a thing to him. It's not an oddity that, other characters haven't seen a black person before, which happened a couple times in the book. And they're like, oh, what's that? I don't know. And then there's other characters that had, they've come across slaves and things like this. So the way they grew up will affect how they treat Dietz. Newt grew up with him, and so he sees Dietz as one of his family.
Dang.
So yeah, it's just an interesting take. A lot of racism is a lot just how you grew up and your experiences. It's not necessary. It's not always taught to you, but it's also not. So you get multiple types in this book. Like you get the racism of they've never seen a black person before, and so they treat them differently. And then, so that's one type. That's more racism out of ignorance. And then there's the other where they've had negative experiences or they just have different prejudices. And so that's a taught prejudice, typically. And Newt is that neutral of like he's experienced, he's been around black people before with Dietz, but then also Dietz is just so competent and awesome. He's like, why would he ever think black people were inferior in any way? Because Dietz is superior in most ways. So it's like,
It's great.
yeah, I don't know. I like Dietz.
Yeah, he had his was the most tragic, strong word, because there are a lot of tragic deaths, but his was the most, it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
His was the most, I don't even want to say unexpected, but his was the most, it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
As I repeat myself, just
it was a pointless death.
Yeah. That's the word. Yes, pointless. Yes.
Oh. Character killing him out of didn't know what they were doing. That if they just didn't show mercy and were ruthless.
Yeah.
But
do you have another character you want to point out before we go to plot?
Let's see. Would you like to talk about Roscoe briefly?
We did talk Roscoe. Do you want to go back to Roscoe?
Briefly, like, what were your thoughts about it? Because he kind of took over. So you think that it's going to mostly follow July,
Then it goes.
and then
to
it goes to Roscoe.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? Because that a lot of the humor of the book, especially in the second half, came from him. You know,
Yeah.
Just Roscoe's weird experiences of just he's a coward, but he's also can at least make a decision. He gets captured.
And he's going to look for July, right?
He's going to look for July, but he's also taking his time about it. He doesn't want to, but he will.
Honestly, the funniest part about Roscoe to me is the situation.
Oh yeah,
where Jake Spoon's situation is already bonkers, where you have accidentally killed a dentist on the run. Now July's got to go after him because of his wife that hates him, just wants to get rid of him, and Peach just wants to make sure July gets out there. It's July's brother that was a dentist, right? So July's going after, and then July's going there. Elmira's gone, and now Peach, I think that's her name, is going, oh, Elmira's gone. You got to go tell July that Elmira's gone. So now Roscoe's chasing July, who's chasing Jake Spoon, and Jake Spoon, who's running from... It's just that many layers down to help. Where does it get pointless? I'm just going, Roscoe already starts, his plot point already starts from a place of,
who cares?
Who cares? Like that's, his is the most, again, pointless of journeys of all of them, especially because we know Elmira doesn't give two shits about July. So that on top of it makes you go, Roscoe's whole thing, when he does run into, I think that woman's name was Louisa, but does run into that house, the cabin, whatnot. He should have just stayed there.
Probably should have.
That should have been his character arc. Just kind of lounge down, chop wood.
But also his relationship with Janie, the little wild girl, was... Yeah. I was so invested in that. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, it's such a cool, like, little buddy cop story we have here of the incompetent deputy and then just this wildly competent and feisty little girl. It's just great at throwing rocks.
Yeah. And
also a great tracker and hunter and just wild thing.
The only one that could compete with Dietz.
Yeah. And you see how he kind of she's getting him out of situations, and then July shows up and you're like, oh my God. And now the whole gang's together. July, Joe, Janie, and then Roscoe. And then Blue Duck kills all of them except July, just in their sleep. I couldn't process that at all.
Was that the most tears you got from the book?
Probably. I felt so bad for little Janie. Her story of being was sold as a literal child slave
Yeah.
from her parents, and then just escaping, finally like linking up with it. Hey, Roscoe's at least. She kind of went up with him because she knows he's a little bit of a coward. Like, he won't do anything to her. And so she helps him out as long as like he'll help her out a little bit. Like, she doesn't need
this whole transaction.
She doesn't need like physical help from him. She needs like just an adult representative that will like get her through places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's more capable than Roscoe.
She's way more capable, but she needs like
chaperone.
The chaperone to like go around, and she needs
Yeah.
somebody. It just, oh God, what Blue Duck? Oh, what a villain! But kills these children in their sleep. Oh,
I
God.
guess Blue Duck. What's the name Blue Duck give you?
I mean, Indian is like, it's a very
Well, yeah, but we were saying
English version.
How you name characters. What does Blue Duck tell you?
It doesn't sound evil. It's just
A rubber ducky.
I know.
It's like was it this kind of July Johnson thing of the opposite of what you'd expect?
Maybe, but Blue Duck just, I don't know. It's not long. It's not super short. It's just, I don't know. It's maybe a name that requires a story.
Okay.
And so that kind of goes into that infamy.
Yeah.
You know, where you have someone like Lippy Jones. Like,
Lippy Jones.
There's a story behind there. There's a story to it. There's, when you're like Blue Duck, that didn't come from nowhere. There's something there. So maybe that it's a name that implies something more.
Let's be Pulitzer about this again, okay?
Sure, we could try.
What does Blue Duck mean? If you have to modern art this. Modern art it, find meaning in something that could be meaningless.
Sure.
Try to do it.
Oh, I'm king of making meaningless things.
Just find it. There's gonna be a gold mine here.
Oh, if you take the standard approach of blue being, sad, depressive,
right?
Or, you take that more negative emotion. Ducks being, free.
Yes.
The flight of ducks and this tragically free thing.
God.
Blue Duck is free, but in his freedom, he causes chaos and death and this revenge against the white man.
Oh. When it gets past the 2.5 hour mark, hey, if you are all still here, first off, subscribe. Do something. Comment below. Just let us know you're still here. Rich will be replying. I'll be replying, but this is your thing. This is your favorite book. Yeah. But I hope you're ready for more because we're going into plot now.
Oh,
you ready for plot?
Yeah. Guess what I gave it?
5?
5 stars.
Oh my God. I gave this one a 4.25. Really
Fair
great
enough.
plot.
The amount of twists and turns that this plot gives me, the ending, the amount that I was not bored for a single second in this plot. I don't think any of it dragged. That I was invested
and it's a long
entire
book,
way
so
through.
That's a big task. Gargantuan.
Several different plot points. If we're talking just surprise, floored me. The fact that the pacing floored me. I'm invested every single page. I have to give it 5 stars.
To give it this big, what was the plot? The tropes were you kind of got this fellowship.
Kinda, yeah.
You got this fellowship traveling to Montana. Your A plot is the Montana trip and the eventual return. That's what's there.
Your B plot is July Johnson and him chasing after Jake Spoon and all the hijinks that goes along with it.
Oh yeah, and then you got all those mini conflicts with, as we talked about this whole time, Lorena's and Clara's and Gus's and all. Oh my! So you have all of this on the Montana trip with July chasing after. Other thing, it's more of an adventure kind of story. Would you classify this as what would you classify this other than just a fellowship trope or something that it follows?
It's a Western. That's really what it is.
Yes,
this is a Western.
It is Western. I mean, the plot structure. What would you classify as? We talk about our 10 big story beats.
Sure.
Is it? I guess just is it Golden Fleece? Is that what it's called? But the fellowship. I think that just about summarizes what this is about. It's a fellowship, road trip type journey. That's it. That's kind of the word I'm looking for. And so that whole transition of comedy turning to a tragedy, I really like. And I think a lot of the plot moments and a lot of the deaths, one thing that, well, I guess why this is the lowest category for me is it's obviously a very long book. I think the characters and the message, those are the highlights for me. A lot of the deaths that happened and the Dietz dying, Jake Spoon dying, Louisa, at a certain point, I expected the deaths to come, so it hit less. So I didn't get a big cry out of me, and I think a lot of that was just, it helped the message of the story. Plot structure still being really great, and especially that last line just sticking with me so well. That last line alone just brought everything together so well. And so really great. Is there anything with the plot you think that was done? So why did it floor you? Was there something about the way it was structured?
I mean, the structure of the A plot being this fellowship journey from Texas to Montana, this cattle train, that was your standard. The story that he was trying to tell was, like you mentioned before, the demystifying, unromanticizing the West.
Yeah.
And then we have our whole B plot, which in many ways is a satire of what your standard Western story is in many different aspects, of July Johnson being like your parody of John Wayne type deal, and Roscoe just being this kind of standard joke deputy character.
Yeah.
But to an extreme of normally he gets into trouble and the sheriff gets him out of it. This time it's a little girl that gets him out of trouble. Right. And ultimately pointless journey that ends up with them all dying and July just having to leave.
Yeah.
If he wasn't important to anything, to anyone.
Let's be honest though. Let me ask this.
Yeah.
The plot could have been anything and you would have loved it, right? I mean, within bounds. You put these characters in a slightly different plot, you're like, oh, this is still amazing. It's not, the plot isn't the reason necessarily you loved it. It's the character interactions, and the plot was more. Here's something to say. Usually a lot of characters are a vehicle for the plot. I think in this case, the plot was a vehicle for these characters in a fun way to look at.
But the moment, so it's two fronts of one, I like the structure of the plot itself was just so very engaging of what exactly has happened. Enough surprising moments to me floored me of what happened. I didn't see coming. So there's enough flooring me moments along with the overall structure being well paced that I do say the whole plot floored me. Could the plot have been different and gotten the same 5-star? Yeah, it could have. But this one did it too.
I think I guess for pacing, it did take, it was like 26 or 27 chapters before they left for Montana, which is going to sit and sulk with you because right at the beginning it promises you like, hey, this can be a character journey. That it's ingrained right there of showing, hey, this isn't going to be a fast-paced book. It is going for a slow pace. It is going for, at times it picks up. Of course, there's those moments, but it's definitely overall a slow burn, slow-paced in general. And so it keeps that consistent. What did you love about the pacing specifically?
The speed at which when it started to go fast, it raced. So it was, because it had a good rhythm. It wasn't just fast moment followed by slow, fast, slow. It would go for quite a while of just, we're moseying along. It's a character journey. We're having some moments, slow moments. And then all of a sudden, something wild happens. And then immediately goes right back down to and we're off again. And it's kind of jarring how much that takes you out of it, but then we just move on just as quickly. And then there's a couple, so that kind of, it's like a roller coaster ride of what? And you blink and you miss it. And then you have other moments that just kind of sit with you that are intense. Jake Spoon's death is, I think, an intense moment of, everything falling up to them trying to hunt down these bandits, and then finally coming across Jake Spoon and then having to execute their former friend. And then they let it sit with you. We don't move on from that very long. That was a long, drawn out, intense moment. He plays with that timing. He knows when to speed it up. He knows when to slow it down. And he doesn't mix it both. That's really well done. And so the important moments don't all feel the same when they're coming. So sometimes you see, like with Dietz's death. Dietz's death was drawn out. Like you feel he's going to die. And you see him coming and you see it's tragic, like, no, you see it happen, like, no, Dietz. But then you have other moments with, like, Gus just happens. It's like you think he's going to get out of it and just, nope. Or you have other characters like the Irishman just dying. There's plenty of just fast deaths move on, and then plenty of slow deaths or even slow moments, action scenes. So all that stuff is what I'm saying is not asymptomatic, the non-rhythmic structure of the plot. Arrhythmic
Yeah.
Nature of the plot.
Talk that talk, yeah.
Is what made it very enjoyable to me.
Nice.
So
that and the way it's structured, the way it was paced, had those arrhythmic moments, all made it and put it together and landed a great gut punch for you. What would you consider the climax of the book, that climactic moment? Not the end where Gus dies, but I'm answering it in my head, but what would you say it is?
I mean, sure, that's kind of the trick of the book.
Yeah.
Is you think Gus's death feels like what should be the end of the book.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion. And then it keeps going. And it takes that moment of like, man, Gus was such a great character. Why was Call here? Like, interesting enough, but why is he here?
Yeah.
And then you get that whole ending with him of like, oh, everything comes into context. Call is just as good as Gus as a main character. I mean, it's the end. The climax is the very end of the book, of that kind of last line, him taking his body back, and he really did love that whore.
The woman. They say he missed that whore. Yeah. Wow.
But why did you rate it a little lower?
I explained that, didn't I? Did I do a poor job?
No,
just again.
I guess it's a little bit.
Okay.
We're just kind of exploring it.
I mean, we do need to make this video at least. Actually, I have something to reveal. People that are listening to this right now, we hope you're having a great day.
We hope
afternoon, night, whenever, because they could be listening to this 5 years from now. It could be 2029, 2030. Isn't that
could be
wild to think about? Anytime someone looks up Lonesome Dove review, this will be the longest by far. We're trying to hit every detail we can for your favorite book of all time.
I appreciate it.
And so something about this being almost 3 hours that we're coming up on, you have to realize, maybe you sped this up 1.5 speed, whatever. Let's say you didn't. You could have watched the entire Fellowship of the Ring theater edition instead of watching this. So just think about the decisions you make. Just like Call was being stubborn. You're being stubborn right now, continuing the video.
And now we're calling you out on it. Now you're feeling less inclined to actually click off the video because you're like, we're calling you out that you will click off the video.
But now you're here for the long haul. You've only got another 20 minutes left or so. So you might as well
stick it out.
Stick it out. Because the way I'm drawing this out is the way the plot drew out a little bit for me. Bringing it back to the plot, okay? A little bit of that pacing, a little bit of that, okay. Getting some... The book, I felt its length at times. It did feel that epic scope. That was great. But to get us started, I think the main issue I had, why this isn't my favorite book of all time, is characters get me so far, but then some sort of compelling plot, unless the emotion like floors me. So I'm, again, thinking of those Mad Max Fury Roads, that's just absolute testosterone, simple plot. But despite that, since I didn't get that cry, since I didn't get et cetera. But with the plot, as I look at it as a whole, it fits. It's really great. I wouldn't change. It's not that I would be here, do this, do that. I think if anything, just the beats, the emotional beats, or maybe not emotional beats, that's the wrong word, where the beats are, so how long it takes to get from place to place, does help in one way, but kind of takes away in another, takes away from my, I guess the slow burn works for you when you're feeling that tension constantly, and I felt it a lot, but there were some moments where I just wasn't completely going page to page. I was able to put it down for a while, go back, leisurely read it, and especially when I'm looking at all these categories and thinking plot versus characters, et cetera, Larry McMurtry is a great plotter. I don't think he's like flooring me with his plots. There are other plots that like have these massive twists or are like precisely written, and their talent is that they're able to put something together in like a masterful way. And what he does here, I think he's masterful with his characters, masterful with his themes, masterful with it. We'll get to his prose and stuff. But with his plot, I would say if he has a weakest part, it's the plotting. That's why I don't like it as much.
If you look at my very substantial notes, it was the one category. No, that wasn't actually it. No, that's the next one that I was like maybe, but not.
Oh, want to go to the next one?
Sure, we can.
World building.
I just want to say plot is 5 stars. It's perfect. Don't need to change it.
So world building, what would you give it?
I was initially going to give it a 4.75,
Mm-hmm.
but I changed my mind. I was like, no, it's 5 stars. You want to give me like...
I did give it a 4.75, so I'm with your old rating. I think the old one's correct.
If there's a setting, like, does this story immerse you completely into the Wild West? Yes, it does. The setting is perfect. It does it expertly. I feel it. Full immersion. If you want to like full immersion into the Western vibe.
What gave you that immersion?
I mean, it's everything. It's how he describes things.
I wish I
all
could.
The characters' names. It's all of the different fight scenes. For me, it's like the visceral setting of like when Gus is chasing after Blue Duck, how it's described, how the landscape is described, how he again slaughters his own horse while he's riding it in mid-battle to like throw off the enemy's horse because the smell of blood is so pungent. It's all that stuff that just puts me into the setting of this wild, wild West.
Yes, definitely felt 1870s, definitely felt like the Wild West portrayed it. You feel the tone.
Everything's consistent with how the characters treat each other, feels right at home with the setting.
Atmosphere is the word I was looking for. You feel the atmosphere.
How they talk fits the setting. Everything is consistent with a very clear setting.
Also, a bit of you get to see the army at a certain point, which is cool to see how they interact with the army. Mm-hmm. You get to see. One scene we didn't even mention thus far was I think when they were in Austin. Austin, Texas. When they were there, they went into some saloon and you saw the old pictures of the whole crew, of the whole gang. You got
that classic Western where the old cowboy trying to be in civilization again, and you clearly see there's no place for him. Of Gus just slight bit of disrespect, and he beats the guy's head in. Like, hey, you're being a little lippy, and then realizing like, hey, actually, we kind of have to get the cops. Like, that's not acceptable. Yeah. He's like, oh, damn it.
I guess so. Right.
Like, this is why I don't like cities. Can't just beat a fella up for, lipping off.
But yeah, excellent world. Gets you in the Western atmosphere, and 4.75 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, there's not too much to say other than just, I guess, talking about the world of where a big factor of this is sex work in the West.
Yeah.
And how that's factored. But I think we talked about that quite a bit.
We did, yes.
I actually don't know how particularly accurate it is. I'm assuming that's fairly accurate to the time period, or at least how it's treated, but I'm not particularly sure.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for asking, though, why it's not a 5. The reason it's not a 5 is we're closing on midnight. Here we go.
Oh, Lord.
All right, so the reason it's not 5 stars for me, the only complaint I had was sometimes when the characters were in locations and running into the other characters, it was, even though I know the map of the United States, it's not that. It's like how them running into each other over the vast landscapes. Obviously, they're going to similar locations, but I was like, oh, they're there. So keeping track of where people were. But the atmosphere, setting, the time period, all of that nailed it.
You feel how the landscape changes throughout the whole cattle drive.
Yep.
It's just well done.
Yeah. Prose time.
Prose time.
What did you give Prose out of 5 stars?
Big surprise here. 5 stars. Floored. There's a reason it won the Pulitzer Prize.
4.75 for me.
Sacrilege. Out of every score, this is
What?
incorrect.
It's not okay. Larry McMurtry is no Pierce Brown. Let's be honest.
Did you give Pierce Brown 5 stars for Prose?
Like all of them? No, not all of them.
Okay.
But I mean,
You gave it for the first one.
okay. But here's the thing: objectively, Dark Age is a 5-star Prose. Objectively, like that is killer.
Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove is not a 5-star prose for you.
It's 4.75.
That's the most I've disagreed with you ever. Honestly.
On a 0.25?
Yes.
What?
That's wild. The
Oh.
wild thing.
What?
The only 2 that you really have to like give a 5-star here is characters and writing.
It's
That's the
absolutely
2
spectacular.
Everything else is like, yeah, you can have a sub 5 score and I wouldn't be upset with you.
What?
That one I'm more upset with.
You're upset with that?
Yeah, that's the one I'm
Really?
upset with. Yeah.
Why?
It's perfect.
I love it. I was giving it a 4.75.
It won the fucking Pulitzer Prize for writing.
Yeah.
It floored you. How did it not floor you with its writing? The dialogue is some of the best dialogue between characters. It rivals, not rivals. Sorry, Abercrombie, but blows Abercrombie out of the water, and he does amazing prose. He has amazing dialogue. Lonesome Dove is better. Lonesome Dove, I have not read better dialogue, period, in any book. Descriptions is perfect. How do you describe that? You just did the whole death scene for Dietz, of a unique way to describe his death, of just makes you feel like you're there. How do you not give this 5 stars? Go ahead, justify yourself.
First off, I'm lowering my overall rating to a 4.75.
Yeah, you can go
After
fuck
this.
yourself.
I'm
That's what you can do.
lowering it, and the more sass I get, the lower Prose is getting.
It's okay. You're just getting more and more wrong. You get to sully
It's-
your own.
It's gonna go down so
reputation.
much it'll go to 0 and come back to 5.
Yeah,
Like you'll keep on taking it down.
Yeah.
So, why it's absolutely spectacular? The reason Larry McMurtry does so well with this is the dialogue's killer, and he has a simple way of writing his prose. But for me, what really worked was, you asked why I didn't give it the full 5.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I want to talk about its praises first.
All right.
The reason I don't give it 5 stars is when I'm giving stuff 5 or 4.75, the only difference in my head is the word floored we use for 5 stars. But I do this even for emotional impact, for all the things. 5 stars are like, okay, they're on my favorites list. Like when I look at them, like I will look at that. It's on my favorites Prose, so it's more of a subjective look at. When I look at 5 stars Prose, when I'm looking at Guy Gavrier, Terry Pratchett, it's like, oh, those are they have their unique style, and people mimic their prose. They are an auteur in that sense. And I don't know enough about the Western genre, and I don't know enough. I'm not as read in the Western genre, and also don't know the inspirations to Larry McMurtry. But other people in the 5-star prose have such a unique style to them. Other people try to mimic them. Larry McMurtry's prose is, I would say this in a good way. I'm telling you this in a fantastic way. It's the complaints Sanderson gets with his prose, like how it's simple and like a window. His is also that window prose, but done the best it could ever be done in that way. Like it's that very windowless prose of don't focus on the line, but you'll just read it and it just hits so hard, and it's excellent for what that does, and that simplicity done so well. And you have a thought on
I
that?
do disagree with you. Like the whole idea of window prose is generally simple language, not very purplish. That's kind of the point. It's not stained glass. I think it's pretty darn purple prose with this.
Oh no, it's not.
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Where? Just go to a random line.
Random line.
First paragraph.
I'm going to embarrass myself here. Call began to be very worried about Gus. It was unusual for him to be gone so long with only one man to chase. Of course, Blue Duck might have had a gang waiting, and Gus might have ridden into an ambush. He had not done any serious fighting in years. Even P.I. had begun to worry about him. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
To me, it's the dialogue and description. It has enough moments of purplish.
There's lines to remember. Yeah,
that's the thing. It has
it's
such
just
memorable lines.
The majority of the book, though, it's so easy to read. It's that windowless prose in that way, and I guess can be fantastic. You could still have 5-star windowless prose, I'm sure, but it's the
layers.
Mm-hmm.
When I normally think of like windowless prose, it's more of the characters say what they mean, and that's what they say. Versus this one has a lot of like just hidden meanings people aren't saying.
The last line.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, but it's chock full of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I don't know if this is particularly windowless. I think it's just clear prose. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Sure. I think a lot of it gets the job done, though, in a fantastic way. Like even the random line you pulled to, it's like a lot of it is like that. Where there's those moments of it sounds amazing, and that Dietz death moment, for example, fantastic. Like when he wants to get really visualizing and feeling that, he does that super well. So I think for that reason, it's just like personal preference, and also if I was better read in the Western genre, because this feels very Western. Like in my head, this is how Western books are written. With that kind of dialogue. So until I can compare it to other things, I'll hold off on the 5 for now. But hey, I've read other characters, and I can tell you it's 5-star characters. I can tell you that. But prose, we'll stick right there.
Yeah, it's the prose. I wouldn't really change a thing from it. I do think it has its own style.
Yeah, it does.
That the dialogue alone gets me to be 5 stars.
How'd you get me to like be negative about this?
It's what you did to me with Red Rising.
I am lowering my score after this, by the way.
See, I walked into our Red Rising review going like, I really like this series. I really love this one. And then you made me be negative.
I feel like I have to lower my rating now just for our relationship.
Yeah, that's true. We got to have our little bit of contention.
Yeah.
We got to have our battles.
Yes.
We've been agreeing way too often.
We have.
We're starting to have the same tastes. That's not good.
No.
Need conflict for this YouTube thing to work.
Yeah.
That's a shame. But no, I would like to read one of my favorite passages from this. This'll be a minute.
Is it the
This is the sign scene, which I think is emblematic of how wonderful he is.
We can hit that 3-hour mark. This is good.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Yeah. We're paying Nick lots of money.
Nick, we are both sorry and not sorry because our editor, Nick, here, he's going to have a payday with this one.
Yeah.
This is going to be great.
All right. The men stopped on the far side of the lots to read the sign Augustus had put up when the Hat Creek outfit had gone in business. All Call wanted on the sign was the simple words, Hat Creek Livery Stable. But Augustus could not be persuaded to stop at a simple statement like that. It struck him that it would be best to put their rates on the sign. Call had been for tacking up one on the board with a name on it to let people know a livery stable was available. But Augustus thought that hopelessly unsophisticated. He bestirred himself and found an old plank door that had blown off somebody's root cellar, perhaps by the same wind that had taken their roof. He nailed the door onto one corner of the corrals, facing the road, so that the first thing most travelers saw when entering the town was the sign. In the end, he and Call argued so much about what was to go on the sign that Call got disgusted and washed his hands of the whole project. That suited Augustus fine, since he considered that he was the only person in Lonesome Dove with enough literary talent to write a sign. And when the weather was fair, he would go sit in the shade, the sign cast, and think of ways to improve it. In the 2 or 3 years since they had put it up, he had thought of so many additions to the original simple declaration that practically the whole door was covered. At first, he had started out spare and put the name of the firm, Hat Creek Cattle Company and Livery Emporium. That caused controversy in itself. Call claimed nobody knew what an emporium was, including himself. And he still didn't, despite Augustus' many long-winded attempts to explain it to him. All Call knew was that they didn't run one, and he didn't want one, whatever it was, and there was no way something like that could fit with a cattle company. However, Augustus had his way, and Emporium went on the sign. He mainly put it in because he wanted visitors to know there was at least one person in Lonesome Dove who knew how to spell important words. Next, he put his name and Call's, because he was 2 years older and felt seniority should be honored. Call didn't care. His pride ran in other directions. Anyway, he soon came to dislike the sign so much that he would just as soon not have had his name on it at all. P.I. badly wanted his name on the sign. So one year, Augustus lectured him in for a Christmas present. P, of course, couldn't read, but he could look, and once he got his name located on the sign, he was quick to point out to anyone who happened to be interested. He had already pointed out to Dish, who wasn't interested particularly. Unfortunately, it had been 3 decades since anyone had called P anything but P. And even Call, who had been the man to accept him into the Rangers, couldn't remember his real first name, though he knew his last name was Parker. I keep going on. I don't know if this is the best. I'm glad I saved this to the end.
Yeah, why?
Because I'm going through this. This is hilarious to me in context. And I just know it just goes on. It just goes on and on. I feel like I'm going to bore people with it. But also, no, I'm going to keep going. Having no wish to embarrass the man, Augustus had written him in P.E. Parker Wrangler. He had wanted him to listen.
I want to go home.
Is this the best example? Yes. Point being, how many instances, with just those few characters? One, it goes on. Mm-hmm. The reason it goes on is to show all the other characters and how they respond to it. We already get characterization of how much, what is Call's character of wanting to, wash his hands of the matter, is interested, but prideful, but in different directions. Gus just always gets his way, wants to be known for being intelligent, even though he's not particular. He considers words like emporium smart, important words. It's brilliant writing. And it's deliberately a little
so good.
It's like this weird, dull nature of it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the balls? The absolute cojones.
What?
To take Larry, what are you gonna write today?
Yeah.
I'm gonna write about the sign for the cattle company and how the sign was made.
The balls. What do you mean?
That's stupid. That's a stupid idea to do.
It's not stupid.
No, to take many pages, 5 or 6 pages for an aside to talk about a goddamn sign in this Western novel. That's dumb. That's dumb on the surface, and yet he does so well with giving you more details about the characters while you're doing it.
I love the sign scene,
impressive.
but I like it less the way you're explaining it.
Okay. Am I being too Pulitzer Prize?
You ruined the fun of the sign scene for me.
Okay.
I was like, that's a fun scene, and now you know what you're doing to me? You're keeping me past my bedtime.
What do you mean? You've been doing that too.
What?
The past, God, I am not used to not having my watch on me. I took it off somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Rich, to the point on your sign scene here, it is fun that you spend that much time. You could still have that much fun because the characters and the quips and the what chapter does that happen? Is that chapter 11 or something? It's fairly early on, right?
Yeah, I think it's 11.
11 or so?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I lost my bookmark.
There, chapter 11's right there. So, but it's very early on, but not like the first chapter you get. So you already have 10 or so chapters or whatnot of your expectations and your promise set up. And like that just seals the deal for the promise. Going, that scene right there should tell you what to expect in the book.
This is a slow burn. We're going to take the time to explain this sign.
We're going to let it marinate a bit. This is going to be a long one.
I know that's not the best. As I was reading, I was going, this is not the best thing to list off for a podcast. It works in the book. It doesn't work.
It works in your head. It's like, in the head, it's like, that's good.
In the head, I'm very invested in this. Just out of context on a podcast, this doesn't work.
Like in our heads, we think books are like movie scenes. You know, you just go, you could show your friend a 2-minute clip of a movie. Like, look how cool. Books sometimes don't always work like that.
Yeah.
Books, sometimes you need a little bit more setup for it to work in the brain effectively.
Yeah. Oh, well. Well, hey, my favorite book. We talked a lot about it.
We officially hit, I think we're right about at the 3-hour mark.
Wonderful.
This is the first video, the first podcast in history. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is coming after we already recorded an hour podcast right before this, then took a little break, then came back. So we're on cloud 11, okay? We just filmed what do you feel, 3-hour review of your favorite book ever. Do you have any thoughts for the audience? Do you feel good and tingly inside? Did this teeter your totter?
With a rare moment of appreciation.
Yes.
I appreciate you reading this book with me.
I thought you were going to say something to the audience, but that's to me.
I appreciate them too sometimes.
Okay, yes.
I appreciate you reading my favorite book for me.
Yes.
I know it's a chonker, and it was enjoyable to talk about it with you.
Yes, and I think I feel very satisfied because sure we missed something. But
we missed so many things.
Well, of the things you wanted to talk about, I think
things we talked about.
I think we got all of the feelings that you wanted to get out, analysis.
The stuff we're missing is because we're dumb and we missed something in the book. I think we covered everything that we caught from the book.
Yes.
And that we wanted to talk about.
Yes, which is great. And do you think we'll ever go to the next book in this series and review that? You don't have the sudden urge to read it because you were so satisfied?
I'm just so satisfied with it. I may move on. My dad liked the other books.
Okay.
But he does say Lonesome Dove is the best.
Okay.
He enjoyed the others. But I may want to just keep this as it is. Like, unsullied. It gets to stay perfect.
Like Hyperion Book 1.
Yeah. Like, I wish I just read the first one and didn't read the second. But this one is more of like, I get to just keep it perfect.
Got it.
So I think so.
Well, crawlers. So wrong review. Radiance. Lonesome Dovers.
Hey, you lonesome. Yeah.
If you're watching this, you are a lonely, lonely bastard.
Yeah. That's.
I'm so sorry.
I can think of no other reason.
All
the people with significant others checked out about 2 hours ago.
Well, I will say this: appreciative of anybody that's stuck around that listens to us ramble like this and got us to experience our first ever 3-hour review of a book. We are tired by the end of this, but we are having a blast. We don't mean to. Yes,
we can have a little fun with this in the comments. I like for these long videos. That to fit, we have normally like, hey, comment down below if you got down to this certain section. But what's something like sneaky can fit into a lot of comments so people don't know, right? Like when we say Hoover Dam or something, it's like that sticks out. What's a word that people can slip into the comment that will go unnoticed by people who didn't watch the whole thing?
Lonely.
Okay. If you got to this part, put lonely somewhere in your comment down below. We'll know you actually got all the way through the end.
Actually, very appreciative of everybody listening on. We had a bunch of fun reviewing this. Are genuinely tired, but I promise everything on here we're doing is just trying to make it more fun. Even me getting tired at the end there, I'm very happy to have done this. Yeah. And on top of that, buy our merch at tutorramble.com. Join our Patreon in the book club in the link in the description below, and we will see you next episode.
That was your most YouTube-y voice I've ever heard from out of you.
We will see you next episode.
Here, I'll give you more on brand. Buy our shit. Thank you. Bye.